Thunder Grunt.
This is
we're
it.
doing it.
Yeah, this is the podcast right now.
Happening. All right, I love it.
I've learned in the last, and this is not like an insult to any of the other guests who aren't people I consider friends. Like, there are people that either ask me or I ask to be on the show.
Right.
But boy, the difference of like talking to someone who's your friend versus interviewing people, it's insane how separated of a difference that is for me, at least. Like,
no, it totally makes sense because we could probably just throw topics and talk for hours anyway.
Right.
Whereas other people have a specific. I think people often probably are coming on podcasts because they're like, I want to talk about my movie or my thing, and they just have like a very, specific focus. They don't know all of your secrets. I know a lot of your secrets, so I can embarrass you.
Sure, go ahead. I mean, that's fine. But it's true. No, like topics to go to. Whereas if you're talking to a complete stranger, it's like, I don't know. It's like you're an interviewer, and then I don't know if I want to be that. And I don't know. This show is new to me. I never done podcasting like this, so it's turning into like it's a chore if I don't know the person, because I want it to be good. I want them to be engaged, but I also kind of don't know what to say because I'm not much of a shill, as you know. Because we have like a chat where I complain about everything and we complain about everything, and that I'm not much for like selling stuff. I'm not good at it either.
It's hard. It's not fun. I mean, selling stuff is not really fun, but sometimes it's hard to decide.
It's a necessity.
It kind of is until you're already so famous that you just hire other people to do all the work. Now we're stuck. I mean, it's just us jerks telling people that we're important.
I know. And then you got to make yourself sound important, and that like the project sounds important. And I feel bad because like this week I was complaining about stuff, and I know like our friend Steven, who is a former guest of this show, he's running a campaign still. I'm like, and I said something, and I was like, oh shit, Steven's running a campaign. I hope he doesn't think I mean him, And I'm just like, because my feed right now, maybe it's because the pandemic is slowing down for now.
For the moment.
I think people are really kicking up the Kickstarters. It seems like they're exploding everywhere.
It's been crazy because I think a lot of projects were waiting to get back into swing anyway for when it was safe to shoot. I know like we didn't do anything except for ourselves at home for the last year and a half, and now this this summer we've got We've got this summer though. We've got like 4 projects with other people, and out of those like 4 projects, I think 3 of them are like, "Oh, we're gonna run crowdfunding campaigns. Can you help promote it?" I'm like, "We'll post about it a few times." Like, but it's hard. It's hard when you're working just like crew or something. You're like, I can't like use up that much of my like friends' goodwill toward me. Like the tolerance, right? Because what you're talking about, like how many times are you gonna tolerate me? Like I know. People who are friendly with me are probably like, all right, we get it, we understand. But like at some point, if every day I've got a new crowdfunding campaign that I'm like promoting, they're just going to be like, stop already, go away.
It's blood from a rock, man. You can't squeeze any more out. Is. And like, for example, not like we met online, essentially. We met in real life. We've met in real life for like literally 3 sentences, but
they were really good sentences.
They were great sentences, wonderful sentences. I think we were taking a photo at the time or something like that.
Maybe,
but I mean, I'm new to like circles you already ran in. And so I'm friends with all these new filmmaking people. They're great. I love them. But all the Kickstarter campaigns, it's like I'm asking my Baltimore family, and they're like, Bob, who are these people? Like, why are you asking me to give money to them? And I'm like, I don't know. I don't know what to say to that. You know what I mean? Because like I've had people message me like, is this legit type? Like, what's the deal with this campaign? And I'm like, okay. And I explain and everything. And I'm like, it's really just I'm the only thing connecting them to the project. And it's hard to, and if I do that like 4 or 5 times in a month, It's like,
yeah, it's tough. I mean, it's tough. But at the same time, and we were on another podcast yesterday, shilling for Steven's project, which is called Fat Fleshy Fingers.
Total support for Flat Fish, like FFF.
Yeah. And I've been pushing that campaign harder than the others because we're like directing a segment, so it's more we have more ownership of it. It's not just like something I'm working crew on or part of, which I'm happy to support, but it's the limitations are a little different. But we're talking about it, and it's like everybody wants original, interesting, unique art to be made, but it's just hard in your mind. You're like, okay, I pay like $7 a month. I don't even know what Netflix costs, but like what $7 a month for Netflix.
I think
and
it's
I get
12.
like
I think it's 12, but
okay, it's gone up. Yeah, so $12 a month for Netflix, and I get like 7 million movies, and I pay this much for and now this jerk is asking me for like to put $25 in so that he can make one movie that I get. It's like the value isn't there, but it's about creating the world that you want to live in, right? It's about it's not. I don't want to call it charity because it's like it's not charity. It's not like somebody's really in need and it's not. That's a bad way to categorize it or
it's
to
art
characterize
charity. Art charity.
It is art charity. Yeah, it's about building or supporting the art that you want to exist in the world, and that's the thing about all these crowdfunding campaigns. We're not going to be able to get traditional funding for Steven's movie. Or even if we were like let's say we got an investor to give us $50,000 or something. I mean, like it's just not. It doesn't really make sense for the investor. It doesn't make sense for us to deal with the financial, legal paper. We have to hire lawyers basically to deal with investment contracts and stuff. And it's like
you're spending all that
totally
extra money
ridiculous.
And time.
Yeah, it's totally ridiculous.
And,
so,
I mean, I was gonna say like let's use that as a plug. Fat Fleshy Fingers on Kickstarter. Yeah. Technically speaking, I think I'm posting this like 2 days after it's over.
Okay, well,
so that's not even helping.
You can't give. It's not, but I guarantee you, if you reach out, I'll tell you what. If you reach out to Steven or to me after, we can work out something so you can buy in late. I'm sure we can do that. I'm sure we can do
also, me, anyone listening to this, reach out on message me on YouTube or whatever. I will get you to somebody where you can donate to a really cool movie, and you can still find Fat Fleshy Fingers on Kickstarter and watch the campaign video that explains everything and all that stuff. Right. I just want to do a plug at the top because now we're kind of shit. I don't want to shit. I'm not trying to shit on crowdfunding. It's just the tidal wave of it. It's hard to ask people.
That's
tough,
all
I was trying to say. Yeah.
Yeah,
and like especially when I think a few of my friends, because I'm somebody who's never done it. Like I've never ran my own because I don't like asking for money, even though I want it. I want it, but I feel like I'm always using up that favor. I've been doing it for like 10 years. I'm using up other people's favor to me with other people's projects.
You should save that. You should save that for yourself.
But then I'm not gonna. What am I not gonna share stuff?
No, I agree. I mean, I try to support as many, even if it's just a few bucks. I try to support as many campaigns as possible. I like even $1, $5, $10. I try to anytime I see friends of mine doing a campaign, I really do try to throw in a few bucks.
Definitely.
And we appreciate that too. I mean, like I think within the campaign there's a $1 reward that gets you like your name in the credits and some other recognition for it. And it's like we recognize that not everybody has money. Yeah, I mean, I know IMDb credits, right? But not everybody has money, but we want you to feel like you have the opportunity to be part of the movie, even if you don't have like cash. I get it. Like it's not people aren't always able to be like, yeah, I'll throw $250 at this at this weird movie that some people are making. So
the one thing too, like on that topic with especially on the IMDb credit thing, that I feel like the one thing I want to talk to you about is like, I think you and me, we appreciate movies. We love movies. We love indie movies. That's not a question. So when we talk about this, I want that to be clear up front. But I think one of the things, at least, I find funny, and I think that it translates to the general public when donating or when talking about this, is that movies kind of are almost nothing now. Like the existence of something being a movie is not impressive as it once was. And it's not impressive to the common person also. And it's kind of, it doesn't have any value. Even in our circles where it's like, you can just put a movie on IMDb, which used to be a standard, and now it doesn't even need proof to really exist. It just can exist on paper.
It's pretty minimal. Yeah, pretty minimal proof. In fact, I mean, we have people adding their credits to our movies and stuff, and I'm like, you don't have this credit. You know, like you can't add a credit to our movie. I get a notification. I mean, I don't control it because IMDb is like a public database that anybody, you know, you could add. You could be like, I'm the guy in Titanic. You know, I'm a waiter in Titanic, and nobody would really stop you.
I doubt the studio's gonna follow up on that, right? Yeah, they're not.
I doubt it would probably take a long time before it got deleted.
Yeah.
But you know, I track because I pay for IMDb Pro, which is whatever it is. But I track like our movies. Yeah. No, I mean, I don't know if that makes you cool. I think that just means you waste $150 a year. But no, I need it for certain kinds of things. So I get it. Regrettably, you have to pay for it. But I can track all of like our movies. And so anytime there's a new credit added to one of our movies, it puts it in my like notifications. So I see like random Yahoos being like, the other day, somebody added themselves as like special effects artist on our movie. And I'm like, you are not the special effects artist on our movie. You can't add yourself to that credit so that you can like get other gigs and be like, oh yeah, I worked on this. Right. Like, no, you can't do it. So the only thing I can do really is go file like a deletion complaint and be like, this person didn't work on it. Sometimes IMDb won't believe me, and I have to send them like screen caps. Like for our movie 10, our first feature film, it's 10 women. Those are the only characters in the movie, and then there's some voices. Okay, so literally only 10 women. Somebody added themselves as like dinner guest in the movie, like a random character, and so they're listed in the credits as dinner. And I sent notes to IMDb like, there are 10 women in the movie. Go read the stuff. There's no dinner guest. That's not a thing. And they refused to delete it. Refused. Finally,
so good.
I had to make a web page that had the entire credit scroll. That I'm like, here is the credit. Like I posted a video of the credit scroll. I was like, here's the credit scroll. Here are screen caps of it. There's no dinner guest in this movie. And finally, they deleted it. You know, but what's
the impetus? Like you're saying this is somebody you've never met. That's also adding.
No, I have no idea who it is. Yeah,
so what are they going around to indie movies on IMDb and just adding credits, hoping no one catches it?
Yeah, they're adding like fake credits so that they have like a resume, so that when they apply for stuff, it looks like they're part of things. I've done background. Yeah, I've done background on TV shows here. It just for fun or whatever.
Right.
But so I did I was like a rioter in a scene in Westworld that had there are like 300 people. It's not this is not a big important role. But I check like the IMDb to see what date it's coming out. So I'm not going to be credited in this, but I was like, oh, when is this coming out? And I look, and there are all these people credited as like lead rioter and like, Officer Johnson, because there's like a bunch of police like riot police in the scene.
They gave themselves a name.
Yes, they give themselves names. And so they're like, yeah, Police Officer Johnson, lead rioter. I'm like, these are not things in the show. And it's just so uncool that people do that. Like, I just think it's so lame.
At the same time,
it's annoying.
That's one thing, like somebody trying to do that to get credit, but also like I don't think people realize that you could just make up your own shit that doesn't exist.
Yeah, you can.
And put it. Tomorrow I could have like 30 movies on IMDb, full length movies that I never made. Just exist. Yeah. You know what I mean? And the link that you prove it with could just be a link to any YouTube video. I'm almost positive no one watches those.
No, definitely not.
It's just insane.
You can also just rename it, I guess. Yeah.
Well, like I think I said to you when I started doing this YouTube channel, like technically speaking, this right now is a documentary on paper.
It is.
There's video. We're talking about subjects. And it will be posted publicly for public distribution on the internet. So there's no reason why this episode is not a documentary that I can put on IMDb.
And people do that. I mean, I have a lot of credits. I have a lot of credits like as self, under the self thing that are basically like podcasts or interviews or things like just like this. I mean, and that's fine. I mean, I don't care either
totally
way. It doesn't affect me. Yeah.
It's just funny to me that that's all it takes.
It is funny.
Like I was watching, I think I said to you, I was watching Room 237 like about a month ago, and I was like, that's people talking on the phone. And they're just showing B-roll. I was like, if that counts as a documentary, then most podcasts should count, right? They're literally just bullshitting about what they think about The Shining with there's not like proof or anything. They're just talking.
So I think we talked about how we saw that movie without any knowledge of what it was. We'd heard oh, there's a documentary about The Shining. And we went to a double feature that was The Shining and then Room 237. So it starts out and the people are talking and I don't recognize the names. I'm like, who? Oh, okay. I'd never heard of this person. And then they're saying like weirder and weirder stuff because it's obviously just crazy people for the internet. And it took me like 15 minutes to be like, okay, this is just crazy people from the internet. It's not like film authorities. It's not like not knowledgeable people.
Yeah.
So to take it to a further degree, it really is just like
it's a podcast.
Random. It's a podcast.
What's a podcast? It's not crazy people talking on the internet.
Absolutely.
It's just a really well-made B-roll podcast. That's all it is. And I like it's a prestigious podcast. And I'm like that. If that counts as a documentary, then fucking everything does. Everything I've done, even if I make a JPEG image and upload it to YouTube, to me that's still a video file.
I won't argue.
It has frames. Argue. There is some motion with a logo in the front. Why does that not count as a movie?
It's fact. I think it does. It does. Facts.
Right. And
the rules are very vague about what IMDb rules are very vague. Yeah. And they've talked for a long time about like giving creators control over things because this is like we were saying, the annoyance is that I can just add myself to whatever random thing, but they kind of they've kind of balked at that because they want it to be like a public contribution database. They don't want to rely on the owners of rights to things to actually input the information. But I mean, it's a wacky. We live in a wacky world.
There's part of me that's like it should be like this, but then there's part of me like you can't if you just open the floodgates. That's what Amazon did, right? There was at one point on Amazon where it was just YouTube. It started to turn into YouTube. Like, I remember seeing like entire like 10-season television shows, and then it would literally be a guy filming his kids in the backyard. But it's completely uploaded to Prime right next to Predator and like Lawrence of Arabia. And it's just like they probably at one point were like, we can't let this happen.
Well, they pulled it. Yeah, they pulled everything.
They pulled everything down.
Yeah, they did. They would realize exactly what you're saying. They don't want it to be like crap content, basically. Yeah,
they're like I'll never forget. I found one dude. He made these like CGI videos of him as a skeleton, and it was him hosting a talk show where he interviews Bigfoot and reviews movies. And it had like 7 seasons, and he had it all on IMDb. It was 100%. So like to him, I love that to him it was completely legitimate. Like in his mind,
I mean,
he was making an actual television show, which I guess it is.
What defines it, right?
Yeah,
what defines an actual television show?
That's even saying that. I'm like, why am I even downgrading it? Because it's video and audio recorded with.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean,
this translates to the average person where it's like, hey, I made a movie, and they're like, okay. It's not like a big deal. It's not like if it was 1995 and you said I made a movie. That's like a feat. That's hard to do,
Well, newcomers, it's really interesting seeing because I'm in a lot of these like distribution groups and other filmmaker groups, and people talk about like getting distribution like it's hard, but it's so trivial to get your film distributed. People also when we tell people we make movies, they're like, oh, your movies are on Amazon and your movies are on like. Tubi and whatever. And it's like, there's really nothing. You just like submit it to a place and
then they put it up.
They put it up. Like it's not the standards are very low. I mean, it vaguely has to kind of pass some quality, control checking, but it's not like the standards are not high. Let's just start there.
I think, and for me, I never cared about like the popularity of something or the prestigiousness of making a movie, but it's also like you tell like the people that you want to impress in your personal life, like your family, to tell them stuff, and they're like, well, whatever. They don't they don't see it as a big deal anymore. It's not an accomplishment unless it's in a theater. Unless it's in a theater, and like a celebrity's in it,
Right.
But making it, I don't know. I feel like making a movie has never been worth less to people, and it depresses me. It's worth a lot to me, but I also find it hilarious.
Well, we came from music, and we went through that same transformation where it was like, if you had an album that came out on CD, that was like you were like
making it
famous. You're huge.
Yeah.
You were huge. And then eventually it was like iTunes, which was funny because it was the same thing as that Amazon thing. You could you just paid like $20 and then your music is on iTunes. There was no quality control at all. And I remember like playing a show once, and it was like the nephew of a friend of ours. And he was like, "Oh yeah, your band's pretty good, but it's not, you're probably not on iTunes yet or anything." And I'm like, "No, we're on iTunes." He's like, "You are?" He was like blown away. He's like, "Oh my God, you're like as famous as I don't know
Paul
what bands he liked at that point." Whatever.
Yeah.
Whatever he liked. He was just like blown away that like he had met a person who had made music that was on iTunes. But little did he understand, you could like take any file and spend $20 and then it was on iTunes. And that like Primes, same thing for a long time.
I don't think people knew that. I think they thought that there was a good section of the populace that assumed that you like got a deal with iTunes.
Right.
Like, like they were like music producers and like they only let a certain echelon of people on. Like, no, you're uploading files and waiting for an approval.
Yeah, just any idiot, any old idiot could be on iTunes. And so music got completely worthless same way.
Yeah.
And now we got out of music just in time for the complete collapse of film as well. We're like how can we do something that's like much harder and we can lose a lot more money? We're like, film, that would be the perfect,
Right.
I'm trying to find something that's also difficult and is an easier way to lose more money than film now. And it's been hard. It's been hard in the arts. That's really the big, the big one.
I guess you could become like some sort of like sculpture, but it has to be like large. Yeah. It have to be very big. Yeah.
Right,
I don't know what else you could, because movies are kind of the worst. Like they have every artistic ability in them and you have to do them all at once with a ton of people. It's a terrible idea to, as we've said many times. It's so stupid.
Awful.
Yeah, don't make movies, whoever's listening to this. But
yeah,
like there's nothing that's more time-sucking, money-sucking, brain-sucking.
Yeah, there's nothing good about it. It's just a bad idea.
Yeah, and for everything we just said, it's like you do all that, and then it's so worthless to people. It's just so worthless. I know I sound terrible, but I'm also like, there's YouTube videos that are nothing that'll have like 19 million views. Yeah, and I'm like, why would I spend 3 years of my life making a movie that no one will see? That guy just get good at bucket. I don't know. I beat myself up over this. You're much more prolific than I am. And I applaud you for that.
It's hard though. Yeah, but it's like you're saying, it's really hard because you can put in all this. We used to make a lot of music videos actually, and
great music.
It was always worth it because well, thank you. It was always worth it because we'd be like, okay, we can get this video posted. If people dig it, it'll get 10,000, 20,000 views that first week. And then eventually, like YouTube started being throttled by Facebook, and then it was hard. So we'd get like 100 views or 200 views, and I'm like, why do we just should stop doing this? There's no reason to do this. Like it's
like getting the eyes is almost the motivation, and then you take even that away, and it's like what am I doing anymore? Like I used to get the same thing. I used to upload something, and I would get like 20, 30, 50,000 views back in like 2010. Now, 50. Maybe.
Yeah, YouTube is brutal now.
Yeah, it's
totally brutal. Yeah. It's No, go ahead. What are you gonna say?
You're good.
I was just gonna say that it's like a weird trade-off also because we were so when you're making content you want to be paid for it to some degree. And I guess it's balancing all of these different things, right? You want to make money at least enough that you're not losing money, and you want to get eyeballs. So you're like, which one are you kind of trading off for? And you're fighting for like, do I try to get it into on a platform or into an avenue where the most people will see it, or do I care about making money from it? And we're not. And I know we always talk about these distribution groups because people are always like, why are we all putting our movies on Amazon when they pay so badly? We should just sell it on Vimeo for $10 and only let it be out that way. And I'm like, that's fine, but then like 20 people are going to see your movie. Like
no one will see it.
If that's if making that $10 transaction is the most important thing to you, cool. That's the way to do it. But like nobody will ever see your movie. You're never going to build momentum. You're never going to get an audience for it. And we've had, success with movies. I guess, our biggest like learning experiences with our third feature, Blood of the Tribids, where we actually made decent money on Amazon because it was at the highest rate at the time it came out. And it got a lot of minutes, and then they cut the rate, and then they pulled the movie anyway. So that was harder. But then, it was kind of like, what do we do with this movie now? Because we can't put it on some of these platforms. Right. And we ended up putting it on YouTube. And a lot of the cast were kind of like disappointed. They're like, oh, it's on YouTube. It's like it feels like not a real movie anymore. And like, why are you doing that when you're not going to make any money? Like, they don't even cast members who don't get paid. Just said,
it feels like not a real movie anymore. Yeah. What does that mean?
I don't know. Yeah. But then, it's gotten a lot of views on YouTube, and now they're happy about that. They're like, okay, a lot of eyeballs have been on this, and we've been able to get it back on Amazon and Tubi and other places, and so we're making a little bit of money on it again. But I'm like, do I pull it from YouTube or do I leave it there and allow people to see it for free? And I'm kind of like, at this point, it feels better to have the people able to see it, to allow people the opportunity to see it. Because, like, honestly, those eyeballs are so hard to get. Like, like we were talking about, you already pay for all these services, right? Yeah. To me, I can go. I pay for a few, sir. We pay for we pay for Prime, we pay for Shudder, and we pay for Arrow, and we have a cheap deal on Hulu right now. So those are the only streaming services we pay for.
Right.
And I have like 5 million movies that I want to watch that are in my like watch list, in total aggregate across these services.
You'd be dead before
that I'm never going to watch.
Yeah,
I'm never going to finish watching them. So, how am I going to go justify spending money specifically for a rental on a movie that's like, I don't care that much about, like it's a,
yeah, I know.
It's so hard to compete. It's so hard to compete with all that stuff. So I'm like, you know what? I just want to make sure there's an opportunity for this to be free to consumers.
Right.
And from their perspective, even if they're paying for subscriptions or whatever else, but from their perspective, they're not paying a transaction fee for my movie. They're not like, here's $10, let me watch your movie. Instead, they're like, oh, it's part of a package that I'm already paying for. And I feel like that's the most important thing right now for us to be able to get our movies in front of people. And then it still feels like I'm begging them. I'm like, please give me an hour and 20 minutes of your time. And if you do it, like, thank you so much. Because
at no point is it ever like, I've done you a favor, I've made some art. Yeah. It never feels like that. It never, like, that's the only reason, like, I know if somebody comes to me and says, dude, I showed a bunch of friends at a party one of your videos, I'm like, what? Like, somebody watched something without me absolutely forcing and begging them to? Holy shit. Like, because that never leaves your mind, is that you're constantly begging, even for time. Like,
yeah.
This is really negative.
Yeah, I mean,
really negative?
It's negative, but it's true. I mean, I think people should know. I mean, this is getting back to the Kickstarter thing. It's like, this is why we're asking for money on Kickstarter, right? Because, like, we're not making money on the back end of things so much. I mean, or we're not breaking even on the back end of things.
Yeah, right.
Generally,
right.
So it's just like, it's such a weird experience. Sometimes I get really depressed when I just like, I'll load Tubi, and I'll just be like, oh, I wonder what's on Tubi, and I'll just start browsing, and I just get really depressed because I'm like, there's so much stuff on here, and there's so much I want to watch, even on like a stupid platform like Tubi. There's like 100 movies I want to watch. I'm like, why would anybody want to watch our movie over all of these other movies?
Right.
Like, so many other choices. Like, why am I making movies? Why am I doing
for Tribades? Like, you could even just make it subcategories. Like, there's so many vampire movies available.
Yeah, totally.
Why would anyone want to watch our vampire movie? You know what I mean?
Exactly. Yeah.
I'm not saying that. I think it's a good movie.
I thank you. Yes. But I totally agree with what you're saying.
Yeah, yes. Like, you don't even need it to be like generalized. It's like, literally, there's so many Bigfoot movies. Why would anyone watch my Bigfoot movie?
Yeah.
It's just so much choice. So then, like, with a world with this much choice, that's where my, like, depression and confusion and motivation problems come from.
Right.
It's not.
No, I agree with you.
Yeah, like, it's not so much laziness sometimes. It's just like, I could do a lot of stuff, but I don't know if anyone cares. Like, right. And I'm already watching like 6 television shows, 3 movies a day. What the hell? I don't have enough to give to everyone else that's trying. And I'm still watching all the major stuff, and I'm trying to watch the indie stuff. It's like, what am I doing to like, I can't bide my time personally to ask you to do yours. Hey, can you watch this? It's 10 minutes. Yeah. I feel bad asking that.
Yeah. I do get a lot of emails from people that are like, oh, can you watch my movie? And I'm like, I'll try. I'll try to, it takes weeks usually. Even movies, we have a movie like that a friend of ours made that I'm super excited to watch. Like I really want to watch it, but Sophia also wants to watch it. So we have to find a time when we're both able to watch, and we want to be fully attentive to it. So it's not just because there are movies that we'll put on like that we're like, all right, I want to see this. Like I watched Spookies earlier today. Yeah. But I can watch Spookies and like send some emails at the same time. That's fine. Like that's okay.
No, you need 150% of your attention at all times.
I think Spookies did not need my full. I mean, I wanted to see it. I did pay attention mostly to it. It wasn't like I ignored it, but I can be distracted for a minute. The plot, I'm not going to lose the plot or anything. But like when it's a movie I care about, it's tough to find that time that we can dedicate an hour and a half to, both of us at the same time to watching. And so it'll take weeks to see something that we're like excited to see.
Right. And then
so think about the stuff I'm not excited to see.
Right. And that could be also another indie project even. Like, there's going to be, nothing against indie projects, but sometimes there's indie projects you're told to watch and you're like, all right.
Well, I don't want to, I don't want to like anybody who thinks I'm talking about them. No particular movie is coming to mind right now when I say this.
But nothing personal. But I think anyone that knows us.
There's a lot of there are a lot of filmmakers who are just making kind of like generic. In this sea of endless content, like why make a movie that's just kind of like, oh, there's a slasher who's a clown who kills like people randomly.
Okay,
so like what, like it's got to be something original. It's got to be something different.
I feel like this is somewhere where we sometimes like taper off, like our opinions tend to divide a little bit, because I agree with that point, but also like I can't say I don't understand someone making like a very traditional genre movie out of passion. You know what I mean? Like I get it. I get it. I'm not saying I would even like it to any degree, but I get why they would do it. But also what you're saying is valid. Like, if you're just making something I've seen 1,000 times before, and with you're vying for my time here. Well, why did you do this?
The thing to me is I know how hard it was to make that movie. Like, let's say somebody loves Friday the 13th.
Yeah.
Right. Let's say somebody makes another, copy of Friday the 13th. Because that's a common thing. Like, oh, there's a campground, people get killed. Right. Blah, blah, blah. Okay. There's nothing wrong with that. And I'll probably watch it and maybe even enjoy it. But like, to me, it kind of breaks my heart that a person has like put the energy and the time and the passion and the suffering into making that. And it doesn't really have any of their like individual voice in it. Right. Like I feel like there's so many people making things that don't, even if they're passionate about it, I want to see like they have something to say, that something about it speaks to them and is special to them and is like, it's not just an exercise in making a film. It's like they have some actual like personal, whatever it is, and maybe they do. Maybe you're right. Maybe that's enough for them.
No, like
I'm saying,
it's like their personal thing was like, I want to make a cop movie like the old ones I used to watch with my father. And it turns into something that you watching it, it's not really that remarkable or interesting or even has a voice. But to them, it's like, I did it. I achieved that goal. I don't know.
Right. I get it. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that. Like, yeah, absolutely. There's nothing wrong with that. But I just want people to dig a little deeper into their hearts and find something that's like more meaningful to them to do in the context, like make that cop movie or make that slasher, but just like find something in that's important to you to do with it or to say with it.
I'm on board. I mean, you've seen my stuff. Yeah. I've seen your stuff.
Of course. Yeah.
I think we both agree that our general consensus here is try to make something only you would have made.
Yeah, absolutely. That's the only reason to do it, right?
Yeah,
like,
without money.
Otherwise, why suffer?
I would like
just add your name.
Unless like if Hollywood paid me, I'd make a generic thing. Yeah. Sure, they're paying me, but if you have no money and no one cares, why the hell are you making something that isn't weird or odd or only your voice? I don't know. Like I don't know why somebody would make like an Avengers fan film or even an Avengers knockoff at home with their own cameras and money, it's like the effects aren't as good, obviously. what are you doing? Like, we have that fully funded by the biggest corporation on Earth.
Yeah, just add your name to it on IMDb, and then
you're co-writer.
Just add your name, and you're good to go. You don't even have to make your own.
It's weird to me that you would say, like, hey, I'm gonna make Iron Man, but with my own budget, which is $3,000.
Right.
I don't want to watch a $3,000 Iron Man, no matter how. No. I don't. Make it Iron Man, but he has to shit all the time. Okay, maybe I'll watch that.
Now you're onto something.
Well, once you're in the suit, what happens? I get there's probably an exhaust thing or something like that.
Never been addressed, as far as I know.
No,
never been addressed.
I've seen all the movies, and it has not been addressed.
That's ripe for a fan film now.
That has to be a YouTube video. Somebody did. Tony has to take a shit during a fight or something.
It seems likely.
But yeah, like, I get what you're saying. I didn't think you're attacking those people that made it, and all the effort was put forth. It's like, dude, do something different. But
yeah, I just feel bad. It's not even like I'm putting them down.
No,
I feel like bad for them because I feel like they deserve better than that for themselves. Like, they deserve to be able to actually like make a statement of some kind. I don't know. I mean, I wish like, there's such a sea of content. That's, is what we're talking about. There's such a sea of content. So do something, make something about it special to you, whatever that is. And like you said, maybe that's just copying all the things you love is enough. And it's fine.
Well,
it's not for me.
I mean, but then again, I can't say, like, I've seen your movies. There's definitely, you're copying some stuff you love.
Yeah, absolutely.
You add your own voice, though, so it's not a direct copy. But like Tri-Bates, there's a 70s influence there that it cannot be denied. Right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
In fact, I mean, the entire point of the movie was to take that like style of movie and to do something different with it, to like change the voicing of it. So I mean, I'm not saying don't be influenced by things, of course.
It has to be that's what you have to just wake up and just go with whatever thought is in your mind.
No, I'm 100% believer in the sort of like remix, cut up kind of theory. Like, I think absolutely take all the stuff you love, throw it in a blender, but then make sure you're putting something of yourself into that beyond, like that's the part that matters. Like, I'm not saying you have to make something that's nothing that doesn't reference anything else, because I think, in a lot of ways, using a kind of shorthand where people are familiar with elements of your movie is going to be beneficial, because people, you can't fit that much in a 90-minute movie. So like, you have to rely on people understanding certain things. But like Tribbles is actually, we made it specifically for like the 20 fans of Jean Roland movies and of like 70s Hammer movies.
Right.
And it's been really interesting because I never, we thought like, okay, those 20 people, maybe if we do a good job, they'll dig it.
You were making a movie for 20 people.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know, maybe 1,000 people or something. It's a niche movie. It's a niche movie. But I'm like, the budget is small enough that if those 1,000 people like it, like, we're fine. We're good. And actually, like, it's done okay. But it actually got more response than that. And people who don't, aren't fans or don't know those references have seen it and reacted to it, some positively, some negatively. And then it's also
you named it. The name on IMDb is also, you did a good job because you added like full graphic nudity or something like that to it.
That's on YouTube. YouTube.
No, I'm saying that was a smart move, man. Like seriously, like whenever I've had a video that had like a sexual thing in the title, it always seems to go viral because people are disgusting.
They are. It definitely helps on YouTube, but also I did it so we wouldn't get pulled from YouTube.
Right.
Because I wanted it flagged as adult. So like it has adult content. So I wanted to make sure it was like flagged. Because I did kind of some research on like how do you put something like that on YouTube without it getting like just pulled down.
Yeah.
And the two things were making sure it's flagged as like having adult content, but then also putting those like disclaimers in parentheses and making sure it's clear that it's like not pornographic, that it's like an artistic film that has nudity in it and such, because they do allow that technically. So I mean, that you're right, the like NSFW does help, but it also protects us from getting it
from banned,
taken down.
No, but it also like it worked for you, like
it did and it's been interesting because that movie also for whatever reason, the genre lesbian vampire films is like a genre.
Yeah.
And it's hard to explain what that means if you're not familiar. It's not as like simple a thing as what, because they're not, it's mostly like films with like erotic things with women in them that are really targeted for male gaze. Like, so in the 70s, it's like men want to watch like naked women walk around and possibly make out and whatever. So it's not really like targeted for
it's not for women or
a lesbian audience. No, it's not for women or lesbians or kind of a queer audience at all. But it has been, a lot of those films have been adopted by sort of a queer film fan contingency, with the contextualization that they're like not very progressive in how they're presenting things, but it's still like you look at it under the lens of a 70s movie. And so a lot of people have done analysis of that and have talked about it and written like history of lesbian vampire films. And like more and more, our film has been included in those like discussions and in those histories, which is really like, awesome. It blows our minds. It's like, we did, it accomplished like way more than we ever, like getting recognized in that context is amazing. And I think people appreciated it because the people who are fans of that have recognized that it's trying to flip some of those elements and make it not about like male gaze and not about those things. And we've done really well on multiple like gay streaming channels. Mm-hmm. So there are a few actual like streaming channels that target like the queer audiences, and the film has been, has done really well on those channels. And like one of them reached out to us. They're like, "Oh, do you have any more movies like this? Because it's really popular." And we just got an email today from another one that's like, "We want to." It's because it's it's been doing well, especially because they've been promoting it a little extra because of Pride. And they're like, "We want to do a feature on it. Would you be willing to like shoot some stuff for us to do like an additional feature on it?" So it's been really cool. Like I can't believe that the movie's finding like audiences.
Like a bumper doc or something like that.
Like a little like a little short doc that they for social media. So like we'd be talking about the movie like a 2-minute or 3-minute little piece, like a spotlight on, like here's our streaming service. Here's a spotlight on this film that we have. Here are the filmmakers talking about it.
Are they cool with it being on YouTube? Are they okay with that? Like,
it is what it is, right? We don't, but I think, people don't really know necessarily. They just are, if they subscribe to that service, they're just kind of browsing through and they see the movies and they're like, "Oh, I saw these cool movies on this service." Right. They're not necessarily subscribing to it only because that movie's available. I mean, if they want an exclusive on it, like I would definitely give an exclusive, but you gotta give us some cash for that, right? I mean, that's
right.
Which, that's fine. But yeah, no, it's done really well. And the reason I brought this up, I'm getting back to.
I'll put a link to it on the actual podcast post. The movie.
That'd be awesome. Yeah. The reason that I brought this up in the context of what we've been talking about is that it's contextually, it's a lesbian vampire film. It has a lot of homage elements. I mean, the costumes, even some of the dialogue and specific things. But style. It very much has our voice and our new kind of take on this thing. That at least from our perspective, we tried very hard to do that, and I think the recognition has we've been given enough recognition saying that that's been successful at least to some audiences. And so I think that's a great example where it's an homage film. Really, it's a tribute film. It's because we loved. We went to a screening. I think we decided to make that film because we were at a theater in Boston called the Brattle, and there was a double feature of the Hammer movie Twins of Evil, and then the film Daughters of Darkness, both from 1971. And we were like, those 70s, like early 70s vampire films, the European vampire films, have just such an amazing specific kind of style and kind of philosophy. And what if we were to make something like that, but from a kind of more modern lens? And that just set us off on.
You do flip the male gaze on its head. I mean, after
we try at least, yeah.
Well, you kind of play with it, and then it's like, no, it's not what this is. Right. I don't want to say anything specific.
No, you could say there's a lot of complaints on reviews. They're like, there's a lot of penises in this movie, and I'm mad about it. Like a lot of the reviews are like they're like, don't watch this movie unless you are okay seeing penises, because like it'll ruin your day. Like, I don't know why that ruins their day.
When I used to manage a video store, I know the guys that are now commenting on that.
Yeah.
I mean, like, I know those men. I used to be the guy that would serve them at the video store. The dudes who would bring in Mr. Skin, the book.
Yeah.
And literally sit there for hours going through, picking out VHS tapes to just go. I don't know. And I always wondered, like, are they going home to watch them as smuts or are they watching the entire movie and appreciating the genre of it? But those are the guys that would be pissed if these movies that were sexualizing women turned out to have a bunch of dicks.
Yep.
You know, and your stuff is dick heavy, let's be honest.
I honestly, when we were making the film, I was like, I can't wait. I just remember the day we were shooting that. I was like, I cannot wait for the Amazon reviews of this where they're mad about this because they will be. And so we love it. I made a T-shirt of one of the reviews about how it was, you know, it had too many penises in it. It was anti-religious and feminist propaganda.
Right,
I think that's what the T-shirt says. But anyway. We love those. Is it
feminist just to have penises in it? Is that the thing?
Well, I think
it's more the point of view, right?
It's supposed to have other, right. It's supposed to be about. It's supposed to be about the oppression of women and even the self-oppression of women. You know, and of course you do all these things, and you still like, you know, we're trying to make a progressive film. It's very much in the context of these other films, so it's progressive in a certain way. But then we get people who are like, well, this movie is like exploitative of men now. So it's not progressive in that way, or like we got a complaint that because it's only about women in a certain way that it's trans exclusionary, and so that's another complaint. And like these are all valid lenses to look at the movie from, but it's like we're trying to take a specific thing and reshape it so that it's a new thing, and it's like you can't
do it all in one movie.
Do everything in one movie. And so it's been interesting to see the responses to it because I've gotten some messages from gay men who've seen the movie who are like, this is a pretty like, you know, I guess misandrist movie. Potentially, you know, I don't think it's a homophobic movie. We wanted it to be like a repressed
I don't think it came off
homosexuality
like
kind of movie. Yeah, it's not meant to be, but like some people have interpreted it that way. They're like, oh, because like, the guy, he seems like he's attracted to the other guy and he has to kill him as a result of it. But I'm like, well, that's the point. It's like that he has this religious dogma that it's hovering over him, that's forcing him to reject, you know, it's not because we're saying these are the bad guys.
Right.
And like, they have this religious dogma that you know, that rejects being true to your actual, you know, feelings and emotions and desires.
I hate that you have to explain stuff like that sometimes. Like to me, like, you know, my politics, you know how I feel about everything, but sometimes I'm like, do people not understand theme and character versus the two differences there? Like, you can have a homophobic character. It doesn't mean the movie is homophobic. And that seems so simple, but it seems to get lost now more than ever. To me, watching Tribades, that never even crossed my mind because I was like, it's the character, and the movie is obviously framing him. It's not okay. Like, you know, but this is like, it's just odd to me that it needs to be said.
Yeah, and we had a lot. You know, many of the people involved in the film. You know, I'm not going to like go through a list, but many of them are queer identifying in some, you know, in some form or gay or whatever. And you know, they all were proud, or are, I think, as far as I know, are still proud to be part of the content.
They hate it, but it wasn't because of the themes. They just thought it was a pile of shit.
No, they were all, you know, they all saw the thing and they're like, yeah, this is a voice that we believe in, and this is a message we believe in and we want to be part of. And it's, you know, but like you said, it's right, exactly. It's so interesting because like we had a review recently from somebody who's like doing, you know, I don't know what wave of feminism where, you know, fifth wave feminist reviews.
Fourth edging on
fourth wave feminist. So they're very like particular, you know, and I don't know. I mean, I'm just trying to understand everything and be, you know, I believe in supporting everybody in all those ways. And I think I agree with everything in whatever wave of feminism we are in. But it was interesting because they watched the movie and there's a line in it where the main character, Elizabeth, says to the evil men, she says, "You desire us and you desire to be us." And the point of writing that line was very specifically written to refer to them like being repressed and wanting the same kind of freedoms that the women had in that. Like that's you desire to be us is not about like you want to be a woman. It's about you want to be free like us. But this person who did a review of it interpreted it as if we were saying the men are evil because they're like because they're not allowed to be like transgender in the context of the thing, and that the movie is like a trans exclusionary movie. I was like, that is a strange interpretation of one line of dialogue. And they talk for like 20 minutes about how we're like we're maybe turfy people because of this like one line of dialogue in the movie. And I'm like, I'm thinking about it. And I'm like,
you can't say that that's insane to some degree, but like it's one line, and that movie obviously isn't feeling like that. So, I
do not want to be turfy for sure.
Absolutely. Right.
And I appreciate, I appreciate any perspective like that where I'm like, okay, I can reevaluate, whatever we're doing. And I'm like, okay, that's interesting. But I just don't know how sometimes it feels like people are looking for the problems rather than for looking at the things that are successful in the context of it. And I know you can't always, disentangle all of that. And the movie's not perfect. But it's really interesting when you get into like voicing and going into like a progressive space and trying to recontextualize things that were maybe feel regressive now. And you get responses from people that are like, oh, but you forgot about this other thing, or you didn't do, this is another view of it. So anyway,
to me,
that's a long ramble.
No, to me too. Like, I think it's good. You also have Sophia, and she's going to be a guest later on the show. But I feel like if Sophia's down with it, I'd be okay. I like trust it. It's not like, you know what I mean? Like, there's certain people in my life where I'm like, okay, if they say it's okay, then it's probably okay. I'm not fumbling this ball or message. Whereas like for me, like to do something like that, I'm just so worried I'll say it wrong. Or you know what I mean? I'm so worried. I'd say
Sophia though worries. She worries too, and I think it's hard for her too. And I think it's actually, you know what? I mean, like this will. No matter how I say this, it's going to come out kind of weird or wrong. I know. But
this is a touchy
do it
subject.
Anyway.
We're really.
I'm going to do it anyway.
Two white guys talking about this. It's great. Let's do it. Let's figure it out.
It's really hard. I think, like in a way, we're in a weird space with gender where it's like it's confusing for people who identify as women and feel like they want to change the definition of what a woman is rather than like say, right. Like, I think I don't want to speak for Sophia. So I'm not saying this about her. This is just a thing that we talk about sometimes. If you're a person who identifies as a woman, as a cis woman, then in a way, you may be confined to some kind of like traditional definition of what a woman is, but you may want to actually do a lot of the things that are not considered the norms of what a cis woman does or looks like or dresses like, but you still may want to identify as a cis woman, and it becomes complex. Like I know we have a friend who's an older lesbian woman, and people are like, I know she's like concerned because people try to impose this sort of a trans, idea on her. And she's like, no, I believe in being a woman, but defining woman as, butch and these things, or opening up the definition of woman to include all those things.
Right.
And I think that gets so complicated. The reason I'm talking about this is not because I'm trying to impose a view. It's because it gets so complicated when you want to make a movie like Tribbids, where we want it to be about the way, because it's actually about the way women were treated in the 70s. So it has to be inherently about women and men and kind of like patriarchy in that context.
Your point of view comes from the genre itself. And if a viewer is reviewing it who is not at all familiar with like Hammer horror, that whole thing is lost. That whole aspect of like pushing back on that is lost, and it's only contextualized as in 2021. And some stuff's not going to work like that. It just won't. It doesn't. And it's very heavily coming from that genre, like very heavily. And there is a pushback there that needs to be made, and you're making it 40 years, 50 years later.
Right. And I think it's hard. It is like an old idea of like what fighting the patriarchy is, to be like women should be empowered. Like that's. I mean, I don't think it's not that people disagree with that, but that's just like such a simplistic.
It's 90s. Like you go girl power stuff.
Exactly.
And now that's outdated.
And we kind of have elements of that in that movie, because that's just what worked in that context. And so I appreciate that, the perspectives that are like, oh, this could have been, I know. We're the least
qualified people to be talking about this.
Right. Who gives a fuck what we think?
What we say about it at all. Yeah.
No, but my point is I'm talking about just trying to work in that space.
Yeah.
In collaboration. And believe me, it's in collaboration with lots of other people who have much, much more nuanced and advanced perspectives and understandings of this stuff. It's not just about my perspective, but I'm saying, it's a challenge in creating art and using voice and seeing that something you did 5 years ago or 10 years ago. Cause our first film, we shot it in 2012. And I know that some of the things in it feel like not quite right to me now, only
like you have
whatever, 9 or 10 years later.
You have your regrets for like content is what you're saying?
I don't want to say regret.
Okay.
But I wouldn't do it the same now. I wouldn't do it the same.
Right.
I'm not like, oh, we really messed up or we really made a bad mistake. But I'm like, some of the things we did there, I think ended up like we tried to do everything for the right reasons and with the right presentation. And I think, some of that, like I have a better idea about what would have been a better choice now.
Yeah. And also you can't control how people read it sometimes, no matter what your intention was,
Of course. Yeah.
I mean, this only happened to me once, and I've never made, full length features. I don't think I've gotten the responses like you're saying here ever for my stupid shit. But like I had one person asking me once if Black Jeans Woe was trying to make fun of gay men. I was like, no, what? No, they read it as a ridicule of gay men. And I had to explain to them, I was like, no, if there's anything like that in the movie, it's because the whole thing is constructed to make certain people feel uncomfortable. And sadly, it's sadly, I think that nude, overweight males is what I think a lot of people don't want to see the most. It's very abhorrent to look at the male form, also overweight, okay, there's no dicks in it, but it's like very suggestive of like some kind of sexual undertone. I was like, no, I wasn't making fun of that. I just think it's funny that no one wants to see it. So that's why, you know what I mean? Like, and that
totally. Yeah. It's hard because people just don't understand, I mean, this is why in a way, I mean, I don't believe in like, when I say I don't believe in, I don't really think there is a problem that exists with cancel culture. Like, I don't think cancel culture really is a thing that exists. I think
what
people
has been canceled? Name one thing, right?
Yeah, nothing.
Nothing.
I think people who make art need to understand that you're gonna be criticized and you're gonna be misunderstood, and you don't always have to respond to it. You just sometimes say like, okay, I see why you criticize it that way. Like in my head, because I like the person who did the turf video, Sophia's like, oh, should we write her a message and be like, explain it? And I'm like, no, just let it be.
Yeah.
Let it be. And that's her interpretation of it. And, we have to be like thick skinned enough to understand that like somebody is going to see our movie in a way that we didn't view it. It doesn't mean they're wrong. It doesn't mean, we're also not absolved of all guilt of like having not thought about some of these things. Like it gives us an opportunity to reevaluate and think, better going forward. Nobody is like, oh, they have that one line of dialogue in their movie, they're never allowed to make a movie again. Like it's not a thing. Like that's just not a thing.
No, and also if they like Googled you guys for like 5 minutes, they would realize that they're attacking a useless battle.
Yeah,
they're it's like, okay, these people are not the problem. Like it's not
right, and that's fine. I mean, but I appreciate that because I think there should always be that open conversation about the things. So like when somebody looks at your movie and interprets it that way, I think maybe that's useful for you to say, okay, I didn't mean it that way. I don't think people will see it that way mostly. But now, like in your head, you can think like if I'm doing something in the future, maybe there's something I can do that shifts that, or recontextualizes that, or maybe I can't, and maybe I'm going to do the same thing, and I don't, and that's that's up to them to not interpret it that way, and that it's your choice.
That's like that's a circuit overload for me. Like if I start worrying about that, then I start worrying about 900 things, and I'm like, you know what? I just won't do anything. How's that? Is everyone cool with that? Me saying nothing is I'll just do that, and then and
that's not a good solution.
Yeah, I don't want that for anyone. I don't want that for myself, but there is that like I feel like we've been talking almost about motivation this whole time, like things that stop us from doing things. Like that is a thing where I'm like, am I the one to say what I want to say, or should I just not say anything and that's the best result? Should somebody else say it, and should I tell them they should say it? Like maybe I'm not the guy to make this idea, and then I'm like, I'll just make nothing. I'll just stop. It's fine.
Yeah.
It's kind of dark, but it lives.
It is hard. It is hard. I mean, and that's but to me, that's why, like, you just have to be doing your best, and you have to be honest with yourself.
Yeah.
And you're gonna make mistakes, but that's part of the point. Is like you're gonna make a mistake where you make something, and either you made a bad judgment, or your judgment was fine, but like you just could not foresee the way that it would be viewed, or something in the world happens that changes the context of what you're presenting. I mean, that happens all the time, right? It's like
right.
You made a thing and suddenly something happens in the world and you're like, wow, this looks totally different now because of the, other events that have happened in the world. And
I'm so happy. When I look back at some stuff, I'm like, I'm so glad that I didn't do any of the stuff I did in high school later. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Totally. I can think about all the stuff I'm not proud of maybe in high school, words I used and stuff. I'm like, I'm so glad I never put that in any of my scripts, because I would, be absolutely mortified by it. You know what I mean? Like they pass a test of today in a lot of ways. And I'm like, oh, at least I wasn't dumb enough to do that. And I'm pretty stupid,
right.
Like I'm so, like, it's the knowledge that you're a bonehead. And then you're gonna flub it up at some point, and
it's gonna happen. I mean, that's the thing. And again, like the context changes over time. So like even when I watch a movie from 1980 that I think is a progressive movie, it may not really.
Yeah,
it feels like unsettling now because there's such a different idea about what that's gonna look like in the in the new context. So you just, I mean, I think most people understand that, and most of the outrage about it is like because somebody sees a comment that has no real power or meaning or anything, and they're like freak out about it. Like one person on Twitter is like, I'm offended by this movie. And then 5 million people are like, everybody's trying to cancel Grease. Like Grease is banned.
I love Grease. How dare you?
Yeah, how could they ban Grease? And I'm like, Grease is not banned.
Grease isn't
It's not going to be banned.
Like, as much as I hate Twitter, I get why when you tell people you're not allowed to like something, yeah, there's gonna be that tidal wave. You know what I mean? Hey,
you can ignore that.
You could, but come on, people ignore things now. Come on, Michael, they don't ignore things anymore. It's one kid in a college saying, "Hey, maybe everyone shouldn't like, I don't know, Blazing Saddles or something," and then you got 900 old guys like, "Bruh." I've been watching that for 40 years. At least,
no movies are banned. Yeah, no movie has been banned.
Yeah,
the U.S. has not banned a movie ever.
Right. I was going to say the government hasn't banned any movies, but Disney's not going to release Song of the South anytime soon.
Yeah, but that's their choice, right? That's their decision. I mean, they own the like if you made a movie 20 years ago that had things you don't, that we talked about in it,
right?
And where you're like, I was a bonehead 20 years ago.
Yeah.
You don't have to release that movie. No, you don't have to post it on YouTube.
Right?
You're not obligated.
Yeah,
yeah. So Disney is perfectly well within their right to not release Song of the South. I mean, I think there might be value in having it exist in the world. I'm sure it's preserved. It's not like they've burned every copy of it or anything.
Yeah.
No, yeah. So it's, I think, there is value historically to some of these things, but they don't need to be available to kids browsing Disney Plus to watch that and be like what is I'm confused about what this, this experience is. I mean,
I wouldn't even, if they even released it in some, maybe not, like you said, not on YouTube, not on some streaming service, but if they made it available to the public as a part of history with a disclaimer and maybe even discussion.
Yeah.
I'm not against that. It happened. I mean, there's part of me that kind of wants to see it too. I want to see the day the clown cried. I want to see it with my own eyes. It's not because I want to agree with it or agree with what stuff like that, but I want to see it.
Yeah. Well, I agree. I think it should, if it were up to me, I would say, release it and put the context around it. But again, it's Disney's choice. So I'm not mad at Disney for,
it's really
I understand why they don't.
Off-brand. It's so off-brand.
I get it. That's not,
yeah.
It makes sense. I mean, I agree. I would release it, but I get it. I've seen Song of the South. And
I never have.
It's a weird movie. Oh yeah, well
I've been on a Splash Mountain. That's it.
All right,
that doesn't count. That counts, but
no,
there's no context
really,
on Splash Mountain, right?
No, yeah.
That also is weird to me. It's like I don't know how I feel about that, like changing the characters, because I'm like they out of context they're just animals. I don't know.
Right.
They're just a bear, or I don't know. Yeah.
I mean, again, it's up to them. It's their choice. I don't think, as long as the government isn't like passing laws that say you must do these things, I just don't see a problem with like anybody making a decision to do something with something that they own, with something they own the rights to, like to release or not release or to recontextualize. Like that's fine.
I feel like we're,
I mean,
we're, like, this is oddly very similar to like vaccine arguments with anti-vaxxers now. Like, you can't force me to get vaccinated. No one.
Well, there's a difference.
But no, the government is not forcing you to get vaccinated.
Nobody's forcing you.
You know what I'm saying? It's like this difference of like, they don't understand capitalism, which they are for,
right?
versus the government. And it's just like, yeah, Song of the South is a capitalist decision to not release it. Right?
Yeah. It is. It's a branding decision.
It's a branding decision, right? Yeah. The government isn't requiring them to release it as part of history, nor are they requiring you to get a vaccine. I didn't want to change it to vaccines. I'm just saying it's.
Yeah. So I'll stay away from it. I'll stay away. I mean, I'm not.
We can talk. We don't have to talk movies. We can talk.
No. It's not. I don't have any controversial views about vaccines. I think that. For you, I don't have any controversial.
No. Yeah. For me, right.
But for us, we don't have any.
I was thinking
somebody might think it's controversial.
One like, speaking of vaccines though, now that's come up because of me, my fault. I was thinking how it's interesting how we became friends through the pandemic. Like literally, the pandemic was already raging. We met on a stream, and we made a movie together. We're all we have a little group of friends that I think we're all good friends now, somewhat, I guess. Right? Yes, I don't know.
Yeah, I think so.
Now, I think it's interesting we're going to be friends without the pandemic.
Right.
And that dynamic has to change because none of us live near each other. You know what I'm saying?
Well, we definitely were chatting a lot, and I think like we had nothing to do. Being on the computer, we had nothing going on.
We had nothing going on.
We had a lot of free time. Yeah. So, but I mean, look, we'll be in the same. We collaborated on it. Maybe this is a good time to shift to a movie that we collaborated on.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was doing.
We worked on a movie together, and and it'll be I think in theory it'll be playing festivals, and we'll be in the same place, and we'll be celebrating that work together, and I hope collaborating again in the future, and
that's one thing. When we're talking about what we made was the transformations of the Dr. Jenkins. There's a Facebook page for it. That's all that proves it exists right now. Because anytime I mention it, somebody's like, what is it? I'm like, there's only one thing public about it, and it's that. But I was more just saying that it's interesting to me, the dynamic of like, now the life, literally we met when life wasn't life. And I find that really interesting. We don't have to talk about it. I don't think you're that interested in talking about it, but I do. I find it.
No. It's a strange. I mean, it's confusing. What's even happening right now? I mean, I don't even know. Is life now? I'm not even sure. I'm not even sure what's going on.
I think now. Do you agree that now is more confusing than like 6 months ago? Because to me,
for sure.
6 months ago was you don't leave if you're smart and not a moron. If you're unvaccinated. You stay home as much as you can, and you be as careful as possible, and that's the rule.
Yeah.
Now, it's loosey-goosey time. So now I don't know how I feel. I don't know what to do, and I don't know what to complain about anymore.
Right. I've kind of been a fan of following the science the whole time, and so I've kind of been tracking. But it's confusing because we live in a society where not everybody is willing to participate in what is best for individuals and the society. It turns out what's best for individuals is also best for everyone. But anyway, so we're in a weird place where it's like we can't really be safe. Well, I feel, having been vaccinated, I feel relatively safe going places even unmasked. We did a movie shoot a few weeks ago, and it was the day before LA actually opened officially and allowed people to be inside with no masks. So we're like, we're like at our movie shoot indoors. Do we all wear masks still? Because like technically all the unions, it's not a union movie, but technically all the film unions still require masks.
Until the next day.
Well, the unions still do now, but LA for like businesses and stuff still required masks until the next day.
Right.
So we're like, okay, Saturday, Sunday, we're making this movie. Monday, everything opens again. No masks. You're allowed to be inside. Right. So we're like, what do we do? We're like, okay, I guess we better require masks for everybody. We're like, all right, well, so we all did. Everybody had to be vaccinated. That was also requirement. Yeah. Much to the chagrin of your friends who think they're being oppressed by.
I don't have any. Wait. Whatever. I don't have any friends.
I just.
Let's get that straight right now.
Friends.
These are. I'm talking about like people on TikTok or shit like that. Yeah.
I understand. I was teasing. I didn't mean your actual.
I just like. Whoa! Wait a second. I don't know. I don't think I know anyone that feels like that. But.
We have family amongst us who are not many, but we have some family who are problematic in that way, but not really. I think I've just like given up on being friends with anyone who doesn't. I'm just like, do I want to be friends with you anymore? Probably not.
You're
Probably
a hard
not.
curator, so you curate hard.
I mean, I maybe have a couple of people who are iffy, and I give them a little bit of a flex on it. But anyway, point is, we actually did have people who we didn't hire for the shoot because they weren't yet vaccinated, because they were like dragging their feet on it. Not necessarily they weren't gonna, but they were just like they hadn't done it yet. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, you can't be on set with us because we can't have the liability of like I mean, first of all, it's about protecting everyone. I don't want to bring somebody to set and then have them get sick, because that's crap. Like we didn't shoot a movie for a year and a half because we didn't want anybody to get sick. I don't want to be hurting, so it's not worth it for our dumb movie.
You're going to start doing it now, right?
Yeah, I'm not right. So now I for us morally to protect them, but also for like legal liability, like I don't want them getting sick on our set because like we didn't do something to protect them. So anyway, everybody's vaccinated. We're still in this weird place where we're like, okay, everybody, I guess we have to wear masks. And we had like, I don't want to, some people weren't that adherent to the rules of it. And I was like, I kind of said, because I was the first AD on the shoot. And so I was kind of in charge. And I kind of like brought up the idea and had some discussions. And I was like, I'm not really going to enforce this. Like we're going to do it. But if somebody's like weird about it, I'm really just not going to. I'm not going to do anything.
At that point, too, the CDC,
let it go.
The CDC had already given permission not to wear masks if you're vaccinated.
Yeah, exactly.
So
exactly.
You're kind of just doing it. Yeah, I get you.
Who knows why?
Right. Dude, I took my car in like 2 weeks ago, and a guy was chin diapering while I was paying for the service, and I was like, I haven't been at, you know my situation where I really haven't been out of the house. Like I have not. Yeah. Like I'm only now barely doing stuff. You're doing way more than I am. And it was like a really just moment of like, what's the social thing? Because I'm like chatting with this guy, right? And we're having a good time talking about like my car because he really liked my car. And I'm like, I ruin everything right now if I say, can you like put your mask on right? And I'm like, I haven't been in that situation for a year and a half. I haven't even had that. And so now I've got I realized in that moment, I'm like, all my friends that want me to come to events and stuff, if I want to make anything, now I'm going to have all this extra layer of awkward conversation with people. So I was like, that alone, not even maybe the danger of COVID, is almost like exhausting enough for me to go, you know what? I think I'm just going to stay in for a little longer.
Yeah.
Because I don't want to talk to somebody. I don't want to say, can you put it on right? You're wearing it wrong. You're doing something wrong. I don't want to be that guy. You know?
Well, we don't require masks at all here now if you're vaccinated, which means like,
okay, I'll fly out.
Who knows? Yeah. No, but I mean, I'm saying like, everything's open, full capacity, no masks. So it's like, and I think that's, for the moment, that's in line with what the science is saying. Yeah, and I think, unvaccinated people are at high risk. But at this stage,
it's literally 99.7% of deaths are like unvaccinated.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous. Yeah.
They made the choice at this point, so I can't really
Yeah.
I can't feel bad.
I mean, I don't want to start talking about COVID numbers, but I just find the social interaction layer funny to me now. It's like for me, I'm literally like, I don't want to talk about this anymore with anybody.
Yeah.
And I know like it's still a topic, and I don't want to like go out and have to talk anymore about it. Because people don't have anything to talk about right now. They spent the last year in a house, and you're talking with your friends, you're like, oh shit, we got nothing to fucking talk about except for shit we watched.
Right.
There's no experiences to share anymore until until there's like another 6 months to a year of normalcy. Yeah. So for me, I'm just like, I kind of not want to engage. I'm trying my best to.
Yeah. Well, if there were ever a year for indie film to reemerge as important to people, this would have been it. But instead, everybody went right to like comfort, like blockbuster
absolutely.
Movies and stuff. So it had the opposite effect where people are like, I'm never watching anything that's more challenging than just like some stuff blowing up and
I mean, I'm guilty of that.
$500 million budget. Oh yeah, no, us too, to a great degree. Like we watch way less like intelligent stuff than we have in previous years.
No, I mean, I've been honest about that to all my friends, even you guys, because I was like, like I remember during the pandemic when Sick and Wrong happened, the wonderful Sick and Wrong Film Festival. The lineup was great. The movies were awesome. But my Lord in heaven, was that the most exhausting like 4 days of my life. Just to get through it. Because at that point, like I think you said it, going through a pandemic is like a full-time job. And I was like,
yeah, it is.
I do not, all of the stuff that Steven chooses is great, but it's also extremely challenging.
Yeah.
It's challenging. And I was like, I've got nothing left as a human being. I just want to turn my brain off. I seriously do. Like, and even now I kind of feel guilty of that. Like I watch some indie stuff now, but I really just want to kind of smooth through, I just want to slide through, maybe worse than you guys. I watch way stupider stuff.
I mean, we watch Murder, She Wrote every night, so I think we're pretty we're pretty out there.
Dumb.
I mean, it's pretty dumb.
I guess. Your level of dumb is a little bit higher, I think.
Yeah, I mean, you
guys love mystery.
Yeah, I guess. I mean, I don't know that I would have.
They went all through all of Columbo not long ago.
Yeah,
so yeah,
we did, and that's what brought us to Murder, She Wrote. We're like, what's the replacement for Columbo? And it's not honestly, Murder, She Wrote not as good as Columbo, but it just I don't know. It's just easy to watch. I can kind of play on my phone half the time when it gets, because it's like so kind of slow paced.
Yeah.
And I've even gotten to the point where it's like I know. Like the clue that's out of place that tells you who the killer is, like screams at me, because they're like something will happen and they'll be like, oh, I got into a car, I did this thing on the way, or I crashed into a tree. I'm like, okay, that's the guy.
That's the guy.
Right. You just know once you get used to watching the show, you're like, oh, there's the like the bright red X, that marks the thing that wouldn't have done this in the show. Right. It wouldn't have been written in unless that person was guilty of the crime. I don't know how it fits together yet, but I know that's
right.
So it's an easy watch. It's just a very also and it's fine.
Murder, She Wrote, wasn't made in a time when TV was made to be binged. You hear someone talk about like rewatching something like that in just a chunk, and they're like, Jesus, it's hard to get through. It's like, because nobody back then ever planned for you to have access to the entire show in one sitting. You're not supposed to do that. You're not supposed to watch every episode of Miami Vice in a weekend. It's an atrocious thing that you should never do. Yeah.
Well, it's interesting too, because the same actors recur constantly. So every 3 episodes later, it's the same actor. I'm like, why do I know this person? I'm like, oh, they were in a different character, but like 3 episodes ago.
Yeah. But you wouldn't have known that too, because it's like,
no, you wouldn't have, because you wouldn't have remembered that. We had watched it like a few days before, so it's like we remember. But it's interesting too, because there's so many like horror movie actors who I admire and love, who just like turn up in random episodes of Murder, She Wrote. Because it was like
who?
It's Kelly Maroney, Jill Schofield, Dee Wallace has been in like 2 episodes.
I didn't know she was.
I'm trying to remember who else.
I didn't know she was on Mercy Road.
Yeah, Clu Gulager's in a bunch.
No, I knew
so it's
that.
it's just so funny. I'm like, seeing all these people we know from horror movies, but they made a paycheck doing these these spots, and they probably got decent residuals from the shows because they aired constantly forever.
That was also that was working back then. It did.
Yeah. Of course.
Yeah, that was like the weekly paycheck. There wasn't forethought in a lot of old television. It wasn't like this is supposed to be timeless. It was never that for a lot of shows, and you can't binge a lot of old TV. Have you ever tried to watch an '80s cartoon? Like you can't.
Brutal. Yeah,
it's brutal. It's brutal. Like I think I tried watching He-Man. I was like, I got 1 episode. I was like, that's fine. That's enough. I don't need to do the whole thing. Yeah, it's brutal. But then again,
you saw all the frames because they reuse all the frames and backgrounds and everything. So anyway,
bad,
yeah.
The only one I can still actually watch is like Real Ghostbusters because I feel like the writing was better than a lot of those. Yeah. But I can't think of many others I could actually go through. Maybe Ninja Turtles? I don't know. Probably not.
Probably not. No.
And that's like
maybe the first season. Maybe the first season of Ninja Turtles.
Really? You think it wouldn't be like farther down the road when they got a little bit more solidified?
No, because the first, I don't know if you remember this. Maybe you're a young man and not aware of this, but Ninja Turtles started out on Sunday morning because they wanted the show to be more like violent than they were allowed to have in cartoons on Saturday morning.
I don't remember that.
So it was like I don't want to call it gritty because it wasn't exactly gritty.
Yeah,
but
wasn't
it was
the
like
comic book.
It was.
Yeah.
No, not at all. But it was allowed to be a little more of something.
Yeah.
And then after the first season, it was such a huge hit that it got moved to Saturday morning, and that was when they started. Everything was like pizza cannons and like stuff. Like it just got so goofy, which I like also. Yeah. But the first the first bunch of episodes, it might have only been like 5 episodes, even the first like chunk of it. I think they're much cooler than the later stuff.
Okay, I haven't.
This is my memory from 30 years ago.
You're not that much older than me, so it shouldn't be that different. It shouldn't be that different of a thing. And my age, I'm 39 right now. Ninja Turtles for me in the 90s was like Christ coming back to Earth. Like it was. Yeah. I literally, the day that the movie came on HBO, and I saw it was on my television, I fell to my knees and cried. That happened in my life. That was a thing that happened.
Wow.
Yeah. That's how much it used to mean to me.
Wow.
Now that wouldn't happen with anything. Like literally nothing could make me do that. Yeah. Which is sad, but I don't know.
It did. I don't know if that introduced the closing theme rap song that was like about the is that the
itself?
First film? Is that the first one?
I have no idea, but it's definitely my first memory of it.
Yeah, because that seems to recur a lot through the 90s, and then I did not like the movie Psycho Gorman, but
I know
it did have the closing theme rap song, which I did appreciate.
I enjoyed the conversation you and Steven had about it in my presence in a chat, because it's obvious how much he liked it. And how much you guys...
He really liked it? Yeah.
Well, I think... Did you not read the conversation? I really liked it.
I forgot what it was.
I
no,
really
lots of people love it. That's fine.
Like,
that's fine. You're wrong. It's fine. I'm just kidding.
No, I liked it so much, I called it inspirational. So that's how much I liked it.
Wow. Okay.
And then you and Sophia just did not.
It did not work for us. So.
I just didn't say
anything.
I didn't say anything. No,
it's fine.
I feel like that's a good thing to talk about too. Is like how much we disagree. We disagree often, and
we do.
I like it. I actually like it at this point. I think it has substance.
I have no problem disagreeing with people about movies. I mean, I think not every movie is made for every person, right. And not it's just not going to be a thing. And people, this is a filmmaker thing too. People are upset. Yeah. They're like, "Oh, I got a bad review of my movie," and I'm like, go look up like what I think Citizen Kane is kind of a bad movie, to be honest. So like, if I think Citizen Kane is kind of a bad movie, like somebody's not going to like your movie. Somebody is not. Right. Don't like get hung up on whether everybody likes your movie. Just find the audience of people who are going to be into it.
Honestly, I think people get even more mad at when they don't like their favorite movie. Like,
yeah,
I like looking at filmmaker friends I have, they get annoyed or something if somebody trashes their shit. Unless it's like harassment. If it's just a normal review, that's
of course. Right.
You know, Blood of the Tri-Bades was a piece of shit. It was boring. I hated it.
Right.
You're not going to care. But I feel like some people, if you say, Predator is a pile of shit, I hate it, and it was a terrible movie, the acting's terrible, and then you're going to have way more vitriol. Because you're not just insulting somebody's, like, the thing they made. You're insulting, like, the thing that formed them. You know?
Yeah.
I feel like I see more vitriol for that. Like, and then they start. It becomes about your intelligence. It becomes about you're defined as a person to them now, more so than their own.
It's kind of weird about that people form their identities around these kind of things in a way that's so insecure. Yeah. In a way that's so insecure, because, like, to me, I love, like, there's stuff I love that I'm like, this. You know, I think Barbarella is like one of the greatest movies ever made. Okay, lots of people hate it. You can insult Barbarella, and I'd just be like, that's cool. You know, I love it. Like, whatever.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter.
I'm not talking about you. I'm not talking about you.
No. I'm just saying it's weird. It's weird to me that people, like, can't separate their
tastes.
I guess it's an insecurity about their self-worth in a way that, like, because if you don't agree with my taste, like, my self-worth has been damaged or harmed, or you're saying I'm a bad person.
You're saying if you say this movie is stupid and I love this movie, you're calling me stupid. That's the assumption. It's not true. It's not true at all. But I think there's an assumption there. You're actually insulting me at a base. That's why I always use my personality in those arguments if I ever make them. Where somebody's like, "This is a pile of shit," and I'm like, "Actually, I love it."
Yeah.
And I'll say that only if I know the person totally respects me and loves me, because they'll be like, "You love it," and they'll like, "What?" I guess I need to watch it again. God damn it! You know,
I mean, somebody loves every movie. There's someone out there. You could pick the most horrible movie ever made, and there's somebody out there who, like, it's their favorite movie or they love it. And you know, more power to them. Like, what you know, what's the problem there? It's like, what about it speaks to you is going to be different. It just might be like some feeling that it gives you that's, you know, that's special or something that, like,
you can't
they're just movies that are really, you know, that I know they're bad movies. Like, I know they're not well made. I know the writing is bad. I know the acting is bad, but, like, I can still love them. I don't need the elements to be good to be able to say.
I say this constantly. Like, I always say on the Script podcast, like, I don't need the script to be good to be something I love. I think that gets lost in the translation of the fans of that show, because it tends to be like all the elements need to be there for me to enjoy something. I'm like, man, that is not what I call love. I do not watch something with a checklist, and I don't think I ever will. I think I'm old enough now where I can watch a movie and I'm not like, the structure here is interesting. You know, I don't know if I enjoy it because of such. I don't do that. I still don't.
I try to turn all that off. You know, it's like when I'm watching a movie, I don't want to be thinking about that stuff. So sometimes actually when a movie is too, like, specifically structured, it causes me sort of like a pain to it, because it takes me out of the experience of watching the movie when I'm like, oh, they, you know, I mean, I know you're the Save the Cat is an affiliated thing. So it's like, sometimes when you feel like, oh, they just, like, saved the cat of this whole movie, it's like it just pulls me right out of the experience of it.
But let me say, I feel like on that show, and me personally, I think I have more than the other two guys, two very smart gentlemen who are very talented. I always say, like, the reason this is a Save the Cat show is because you can't review not movies that aren't, or that are shucking that. There's nothing to talk about. If you can only talk, that's why it's blockbusters. You can only talk about something that has some type of baseline. You know, it's hard to review something like, you know, Holy Mountain. You can't. I don't want to do a script review of Holy Mountain. There is nothing to review.
They didn't. I don't think there is a script.
No, there's not a script. Holy Mountain is perfect because it is Holy Mountain. There's no reviewing it. Even if you hate it, it's still perfect. It doesn't matter. But I can totally review Iron Man 2.
Right.
That's not hard, you know, because there's supposed to be a structure. That's the only reason. I don't personally have any adherence. I mean, you know that. I don't have any, like, I'm not a slave to Save the Cat, because it's like that would change who I am. But I do love Save the Cat stuff.
Yeah. No, and the structure informs. I mean, this is a tricky thing, because like the structure does inform what you're doing. And that's been it's been fascinating for me, because like if I'm entering stuff in, I haven't done a lot of like spec screenwriting, but I've done a little bit to submit to competitions and to send out for, try to get money and things like that. And it's such a different game than like writing my own stuff.
Yeah.
Because when I write my own stuff, I don't need to worry about those things. I just need to worry about what I want the movie to be. But I know, like, when I write something and I submit it to a competition, if it's just what I want it to be, it's going to score terribly in the competition. Right. Like, it's just because they're purposely like looking for it to do certain things. So it's like you have to find a way to like hang everything on the scaffolding that they want or expect
in just text
and still be original and just text. Yeah.
Like,
and it's
that's what I'm saying. Script reviews in general, I'm not big on the script contest. I'll be honest. I'm not trying to insult anyone. It doesn't interest me for contests and awards that go to scripts. I don't know why, but I think it's because I'm like, well, when I write something versus after I filmed it, it's so different. I don't know why it matters that I would give an award to something where I haven't seen the finished product. Does that make sense? I don't know.
It could be dense. It's very weird. I think scripts are very weird, and that's what that's what I'm saying. It's kind of it's a whole different game.
It's a writing contest, and that's fine.
And it's like a narrow writing contest in a way. And and I'm not saying like you have to be very good and very smart to write something interesting while following those narrow rules. So I'm not dismissing the skill or intelligence for like winners of those. I think you have to be like an amazing writer to win one of those competitions, but it's just so hard. I think it's almost easier for people who don't really make films to do it, because you can learn in the form and then you never think about it like as a film. You think about it as like this like form. And to me, it's like much harder, because I'm like, okay, I have to strip out the experience of making the film,
right?
And like what it I have to not visualize it and not like think about the production of it, and just put it on the paper in a certain way and strip out all the elements that I would include when I'm writing for myself. And it's just it's a weird experience.
I think
it's a weird.
Let me be even worse. I'm going lower. Like what you're saying makes absolute sense, and I think that's the smart answer. I'm saying, in my opinion, I'm not, when it comes to indie films, I'm not as interested in writing a lot of the time.
Yeah.
I know that sounds, that probably is an awful thing to say, but I'm kind of like, I love to see how people accomplished making their vision. It's the writing, but it's also plus. It's plus everything else.
Yeah.
Like, that's what interests me. It's not just the script. I need all the elements in there to see what they did with nothing, because I know they did it with nothing. That's kind of what draws me to it. It's not just that part. That would be like if you had an indie score competition too. Like, submit your scores and we'll, give them awards. I was like, okay, I don't want to listen to a score by itself in a theater, or I don't know.
Right.
I'm probably alienating people right now, but that's how I feel. It's a personal thing.
Yeah, I mean, it's I think it's weird because people think they want to break into industry or career that way, by writing spec scripts, and so it's like a skill that you have to learn separately. And I just don't. I mean, it's merging all these creative elements together is such a strange experience, and I think like
it's an impossible experience a lot of the time.
It is impossible. It's impossible to really understand all of it until you've kind of done everything. And like, I know for our movies, going from the script to the production to the editing to the final thing, it's like you barely would recognize the movie.
Right, exactly.
Like if you read the script and you see the final movie, like sometimes the major things that are in the final movie like aren't even in the original script, because we had to pivot. Because you have to pivot so much based on what the circumstances are.
That's what I'm saying, is a script is a movie without compromise. And compromise to me is the reason I'm interested in the whole enterprise, is like what you did against the tidal wave of life pushing against you. Like, and I mean, the truth is, if you want to have none of that, you become a novelist. You become a writer. That is great. Right. Totally support it. I love writing. But it's not, I don't find it sitting next to filmmaking as displaying scripts to me next to films is not an equality there, because it misses all the compromise out of it. I don't know what I'm talking about. Right. I'm just saying the reason I like indie film is like, what did you accomplish against getting punched in the nuts for 3 years? Like that.
It's true. And
God
and
didn't
nobody
want
really
you to make a movie. Okay. And you did anyway. Yeah.
And I think that's the thing about watching indie film. Like, you're watching it with that context. And I think like that's really important because to be able to see like what value there is in something made for 10 grand or, $5 grand or whatever.
Or 500.
It's a different, 500. You're never going to watch a micro budget movie and have the same like experience as a $100 million movie.
Right.
So it has to be something that you want to enjoy and that you want to experience and that you understand the experience of. And it takes a little work to get to where you can be a fan of that. I mean, I guess I grew up, I cheated because I grew up like going to the video store and just being like, what is the movie that I've never heard of that's the weirdest looking thing in the horror section or the weirdo section or whatever. And I was lucky because I pulled out movies that were like, in the early 90s, especially, you would get like shot on video horror movies that were clearly made for no money, that because there was such a distribution market, distributors were like buying anything. They're like, is it 87 minutes? Good. I don't care. I don't care what is in it.
God, what a wonderful time, man.
Yeah. I mean, they made money. They made money.
That was like where I want to time travel to. Where I could make anything for 87 minutes and they'd buy it and put it on a fucking VHS tape.
Literally true. I don't know if you've seen, there are movies like, there's this movie called Brain Sucker that was shot on video that was like, it's just a guy with like a, one of those rotating drills, like a hand. I
think I remember
drill.
The cover. Yeah.
And he had like, he would just like pretend to hand drill into people's heads. And then there'd be like roast beef that came out that he'd be like chewing on. And it was a brain sucker. He ate the brains. Anyway. Amazing movie, like so terrible, so unwatchable. And I'll tell you what, I rented it over and over again and watched it over and over again. And I showed it to my friends. I'm like, there's this movie. It's like the worst, most bizarre thing. Let's watch it. And we loved it. Do you ever see the movie Science Crazed?
No, I have not.
Canadian movie Science Crazed. I swear they shot 10 minutes of movie. And then somebody was like, a distributor was like, look, I know you only have 10 minutes of movie, but what if you just repeat shit over and over again?
Yeah.
And you make it 87 minutes and we'll give you a distro, we'll give you full distro on it. And for years, it was only on VHS. It came out on VHS. It was an anomaly because it was like, again, same thing. They made, they probably made a ton of money and everybody was like, this is not a real movie. We're never going to put this out. Like whatever. But finally somebody's put it out on Blu-ray. And so you can watch this thing that's like, totally inexplicable, not even a movie, but also like one of the most entertaining experiences ever. I saw it at a movie theater where they played it on VHS.
Yeah,
they like brought out a VCR and just like played the VHS on the screen. And the guy who brought it's like, this is one of my favorite movies. He's like, listen, part of the experience of this is you're going to be very bored sometimes. Part of the experience is you're going to be like, what is going on? Like that's just. It's part of it. Just enjoy. Let that flow over you.
That might be also like what you're saying with you're gonna be bored sometimes. I don't know if that translates today as much as like the good bad movies, like the vibe people want from that. They want it to be entertaining the whole time, but a truly good bad movie is only entertaining in peaks, and it has like maybe 4 or 5, and that's about it. Like it is excruciating most of the time. Like it's very rare that it's not. Yeah. Right.
But I'll tell you what, the experience of seeing Science Crazed the first time, and I've seen it more since, it was like, it's just like a thing that, I brought it up here, right, in this discussion. I think about it all the time, having that experience of watching this movie where you're like, you're mesmerized by how insane it is that there's a 15-minute aerobic scene that's probably like 30 seconds of footage looped over and over again for 15 minutes. Like, why is this happening? Like, why? And the only reason is because somebody said to them, like, if you stretch this to 80 whatever minutes, we'll give you $200,000 or something. I don't know what amount of money, but
it wasn't even like they didn't really have probably as much short films back then, but
no,
that wasn't an idea back then.
Yeah.
So it was really just like they had one bit of footage. And it literally was like, can you just make it longer? It wasn't, can you make it a good movie or a movie?
Nobody
it was just longer.
Yeah.
It was longer.
They're like, we'll just write Science Crazed on the cover. We'll draw some cool art. And video stores just buy our whole catalog of stuff. And it's going to get rented because it has a cool cover.
The covers,
so the video store, the video store is going to pay us like $50 or $70 to buy a copy of it. It's going to be rented 100 times no matter what because it's in the section and everybody makes their money. And the only people who are cheated are the people who brought it home and are like, this is terrible. But most of the people who are doing that are like me at that time who know that they're watching crap movies. Like we know when we dig through that section, like most of if I haven't heard of it, that's what I'm going to get. Yeah. Like 8 out of 10 times I'm going to get a terrible movie. And, that's fine. That experience for me is solid.
I mean, I'm sure you absolutely agree. But one of my favorite subgenres is what you're talking about is like the movie that was obviously made for a band to be showcased.
Yeah.
We're like Howling 7 or like, it's just like movies where a rock band plays like 4 songs in full. And there's sort of a horror movie happening around.
Yeah, right.
And it's like, did they just do this so they can feature their music on a soundtrack? It has nothing to do with anything, and there's full performances in the movie. It's just And no, I love watching those movies, and I loathe bands performing in movies. Like I don't like a scene of a band playing an entire song with no characters in it or anything. It's just coverage of the band. I hate that. But to me, if I watch a movie from 1986 where that happened, I'm like, that's incredible. Just like
I love it.
What were these? It's like the band put all they had into hiring a crew to make a movie, and the one stipulation was it has to be 4 music videos.
Right. I love it. I'm into it. Yeah. I'm a fan of it. I think we need more of it now. I'm ready for more of it.
Well, also, like, I was going to say, like, I love Neil Breen, right? I think I just saw Blanche in the background.
You did. Yeah.
I was going to say, I love Neil Breen. I'm a big fan of Neil Breen for what he is, But I think, hey, Blanche, for anyone that's listening to this now, Blanche the dog, Blanche is a dog, according to her internet persona, is on screen right now. And she's licking your lips.
She is.
I was going to say, like, I love Neil Breen, right? But I think to some degree, my love of him isn't because he's just making bad movies. To me, Neil Breen is making movies like the ones you're talking about now.
Right.
Like, where it's just some crazy person that happens to have the means to have a camera. And they're fumbling their way through with absolutely no knowledge of pretty much anything.
Right.
And they used to get a distribution deal back in the day. And now it's a crazy man who looks like Gary Shandling releasing them on the internet or DVDs or something. But you know what I mean? Like, to me, it's a throwback when I watch that stuff.
Absolutely.
It's not so much it's just bad. It makes me feel like when I was a kid.
Well, because there were those brief times in history where we had like consumption of physical media that allowed anybody they couldn't get enough content to fill the desired consumption of physical media. Yeah. And so like VHS rentals was that for a period. There were DVDs. They couldn't stack DVDs on the shelves in stores fast enough. You'd have, Neil Breen movies are probably selling at Walmart and stuff, back in the day. I mean, and they would bulk buy, large numbers. Like Redbox needed movies to fill, so there was a lot of indie stuff on Redbox.
Right.
At that point, Netflix is buying indie films, so you had like really, really low budget stuff on Netflix. I mean, it's none of this is true anymore.
A movie that I think I've recommended to you a billion times, which is Vampire Dentist. I don't know if you've ever seen that.
I have not seen it yet.
You need to see it. In fact, I want you to see it so bad because it's a movie I discovered because it was on Netflix, like year one internet Netflix, and it's a movie that's shot on a camcorder in Canada by a woman who had a garage and a bunch of Halloween vampire costumes. And it's just, it's unbelievably repetitive and boring. I've seen it at least 6 times. In full, I've seen it 6 times. Like, it is one of my favorite bad movies. But to me, there's also, like, the fact that it was released on Netflix. And now Netflix is, like, the most prestigious thing you could ever imagine.
Right.
I mean, now it's like Scorsese is making Netflix movies.
Right.
You know,
there's no vampire dentist on Netflix.
No, and Christine Whitlock, the Canadian director of Schlock, can say that she released it on the same platform as Martin Scorsese. You know,
that's right.
Yeah, it's not there anymore. You can only buy it with a DVD-R directly from her website.
Right. Well, that's been interesting too, because I've been saying this. I mean, I think maybe you're close in age to me relatively, but we're in this weird age where we have this nostalgia about a time period for these bad movies that, like, we consume them in a certain way. And there are enough of us that there's been a resurgence of, like, boutique distributors who are buying up, digging up, like, original negatives of some of these movies and doing, like, 4K restorations and doing, like, theatrical. I go to, like, see theatrical, like, re-releases of, like, Pieces. Like that, you know the movie Pieces.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm watching, like, a theatrical 4K scan of Pieces, and I'm like, most Academy Award winning movies have not received the treatment that Pieces has received in terms of, like, rescan and physical release and all this stuff. I'm like, more money and time has gone into restoring Pieces than, like, I don't know, whatever, like a 90s Academy Award winner. Like, they're just not. Nobody cares. Nobody cares about those movies. But
they care. I'll tell you, I've never seen The King's Speech, but I've seen Pieces a few times.
Yeah, exactly. I'm at a midnight sold out screening of Pieces in Boston, and all around the country there are midnight sold out screenings of Pieces. There's multiple, like, expensive box set releases with the puzzle, like, like all kinds of bonus stuff of Pieces. And The King's Speech, I'm sure, has not even been scanned in 4K. Have
you ever even heard anyone but me mention The King's Speech in the last 7 years?
Exactly.
Like, at all.
But that's the thing.
Yeah.
That's the thing. It's like, it's totally ridiculous. And I think a lot of the actors who are in these movies are like blown away that people care, because we go to a lot of screenings here. We go to, like, all the, like, really weird
context,
movie.
I was gonna say, anyone listening, you live in California. Yeah, like
we live in Los Angeles, so a lot of actors. Yeah. So, like, I and a lot of the actors are, like, really appreciative of the fact that, like, I went to I mentioned Jill Sholin, who was on Murder, She Wrote.
Yeah,
and she's in, like, the Stepfather. She's the lead in The Stepfather.
Okay.
And so we saw a screening of The Stepfather here, where she came out and, was talking about it. And they asked her, like, what do you think of the stuff? Because she's been in other stuff, but, like, she's not super famous or anything. And she's like, I am so grateful that this movie I did in 1980, 87, maybe, whenever it came out, is, like, something that you all are here at a sold out screen, care about this enough to come to a sold out, like, 35 millimeter screening of, and care enough to, like, want me to come talk about the experience of making this movie. And she's like, that's a really rare thing. And, the guys who run the stuff, they're like, look, there's no, like, drama conventions. People don't go to meet their favorite drama actors. They go to meet the horror actors, or maybe sci-fi actors, or whatever. And these are things with lasting impact.
Yeah, there's no genre like horror.
There's nothing.
Yeah.
I
have a friend who, I might have told you this. He did the music for Basket Case 2. And he went to a local screening that was just a barrage filled with people to the brim of Basket Case 2, and he did a Q&A and a signing and stuff, and he was, like, dumbfounded that anyone, number one, cared, and that people cheered when he walked on a stage. Like, it's like, like, he had no clue it meant that much to people. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
There's something, like, it's far removed if you're not in the world of that.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, if you're not in a horror convention world or horror filmmaking, people don't know what it's like. Like, that worship of something you did 40 years ago.
And I love the films. I'm not that into, like, horror conventions as, like, a fan. I don't. No. But this is important because, like, I mean, I don't know if it's important. It's important for me to be able to plug something, but I'm not that big a fan of horror conventions, but I find the culture of it like super fascinating, that there is this, and I love the movies. Like I totally would go to the repertory screenings all the time. Like I 100%. And I love hearing the people talk about the movies. I'm not that into like getting autographs and photos with, I admire the people.
I used to do it a lot.
That part.
I used to do that. I used to be that guy and do it a lot. And then it broke in my mind somewhere where I was like, what am I doing? Like, why am I doing this? I don't feel right about it anymore. I'm not paying anymore for this stuff. And I stopped completely, like dead turkey, like cold turkey, just like, but I used to be that guy. So the guy that you're talking about was me at one point.
It supports though a lot of actors, because I've talked to a lot of the actors who are doing those kind of things, and they're really like, it's amazing for me because it gives me a financial support. They make money on a movie that they probably never really got paid a lot for doing in the first place. And they get new recognition, and people are casting them in movies now. A lot of them took a break for some period of time. And they're kind of back in doing a lot of like, maybe indie movies or other things, but it's cool. They're enjoying it and they're getting to do it. We shot a movie this 2 weeks ago, the movie I mentioned shooting with Tuesday Night, who is in Nightmare on Elm Street 4.
Awesome.
And she does a lot of the conventions and stuff. So I was talking to her about doing that. And she's saying like, yeah, it's really, it's special to her to get, to have people again, have the recognition, they care about it. And it makes her feel like, this movie that she did all that while ago, to be appreciated for that is like something that, makes you feel like you have value in your, she didn't say this, I'm paraphrasing and adding, I'm interpreting her statement, but it makes you feel like you have value in your life and, that you've done something that's important to people. And I think, she started really doing a lot of small, like she did our, it's a short film that we did. It's called Sitting Duck. Our friend Aaron Barocas directed it. Sophia and I produced it, and Sophia was cinematographer. Yep. Yeah. And I think it's a cool film. I mean, I think it's actually a really fun script. I mean, we wouldn't have produced it if we didn't think it was good. And I think, for Tuesday, she's like, I like this script. It gives me an opportunity to do something fun. And, stay in front of people, because we're going to do festivals with it. It gives her a chance to get, that recognition at festivals. And for us, it's cool because we love. Aaron said Nightmare on Elm Street 4 was like the first horror movie he saw, in the theater or something.
I really like 4.
It's a special movie to him. Yeah, I love 4. I love what she does in 4. Yeah. She's in a really hard position because she's replacing Patricia Arquette.
Right.
Yeah, Patricia Arquette. So it's a hard position because she's replacing a character, but I thought she was awesome in the movie. I've always loved her performance in the movie. Yeah. And she was great to work with. She was really nice. And so it's everybody kind of wins, and it's part of that culture. It comes out of that culture of the conventions, bringing those people back up and celebrating them again, giving them another opportunity to do stuff. In a
lot of ways, like in that convention culture, with the horror specifically, they're those people's Hollywood. It's like you know absolutely. What I mean? Like like Tom Atkins or Robert Englund is like fucking Tom Cruise when he's there. You know what I mean? Like
absolutely.
Like there's no human these people want to touch and see and talk to more than this man. Like you could put the biggest stars in the world in front of him and they'll be like, I'd rather hang with that guy. I'd rather hang with some dude who was in Friday the 13th Part 7 than, you know what I mean? It's weird how it lasts. They're grateful for it. I was the guy who I literally like talked to Jeffrey Combs for like 25 minutes, about almost half an hour, just because he was enamored with the fact I wanted a Frighteners poster signed. He was so happy, and it was a positive experience. And I was like, you don't understand what this means to me, man. Like this movie is really important to me. Like it was one of the things that like inspired me, like more so than anything popular. And this was a flop.
Yeah.
I've said that to a bunch of people at those things. Tom Atkins. Yeah. He's like a rock star. He's a rock star at a convention, but I think Tom Atkins in any normal situation could go to the supermarket.
Yeah, nobody
knows who that is. But
right.
He's like a superstar if he goes to that kind of shit.
Right. And I mean, like Halloween 3 is a great example of a movie that was like failed at the time. Right. But now it's just like it's hugely celebrated. Everybody involved in it. So it's an interesting culture. We also, again, a little plug if you don't mind me plugging stuff we're working on.
No, why are you here if not to plug things?
All right, fair enough.
That inspired
me. It inspired me because I was like, I don't really understand the fandom culture quite, but I'm fascinated by it. And I'm not critical of it. I'm not like, oh, these people are bad or suck. I just like, it doesn't connect with me in that way. But I love that people are excited about it. And I love that people are excited about celebrities. And I say that in quotes of that stature, like people from these kind of movies, these kind of cult movies. And so I was talking to my friend Neil Jones, who does Without Your Head. Mm-hmm. And I was like, I'd love to do a movie. I think it would be really fascinating to do a movie about a couple of guys who really never had any kind of career, but are now kind of trying to live in that world, in that convention world. Right. And they're kind of well known in that world, but also like they don't really have any career outside of that. That's the only thing that they've got. And that was how, I talked to Neil and he was like, oh, I've got these connections. I think we can work out this thing. I think we can shoot at Mad Monster Party. And Eben Magar, who runs Mad Monster Party, is friendly with Neil, and Neil talked to him about it, and they were very, very, very good to us. And they let us shoot the first part of this movie that we're working on called The Once and Future Smash. And it's kind of a mockumentary about these two guys who played the character Smash Mouth in the 1970 movie End Zone 2. And they haven't done anything since, and they kind of have a rivalry because they're the two. It was kind of inspired. I guess I'll just say it. I don't. These guys won't be listening, but it was inspired by. It was really, really inspired by the guys, the various guys who played Leatherface in Texas Chainsaw 2, because
right, okay,
there are multiple guys, and they like feud about who actually was in different scenes and like who the real and who's credited and who isn't credited and stuff like that. And I was like, this is such a fascinating story. What if we have a same kind of thing where one of the guys is credited, but maybe the other guy played him more, or like nobody really knows, and like. They don't have the same recognition. So anyway, we're working on that movie. Hopefully we'll finish it. It was postponed. The shooting was postponed.
I've heard so much about pandemic. This thing. I can't wait.
But yeah, we've been working on it. We've been working on it for that bit of time. And we have a lot of these kind of convention horror celebrity people talking about how End Zone 2 was an important influence on them. So we've shot with Mark Patton from Nightmare on Elm Street 2, with John Dugan from Texas Chainsaw, Dan Yeager from Texas Chainsaw 3D, Bill Johnson from one of the guys from Texas Chainsaw 2 that I was kind of referring to. I'm hoping to get
he's the real deal of what you're making fun of. Yeah.
And I'm hoping to get Bob Elmore, the other guy, as well. So we have both of the two guys who kind of inspired the movie. But yeah, so I mean,
are you explaining to them the plot? Are you explaining when you like film?
They know, they understand. They understand the context and everything. Yeah.
Are you grabbing these people at the convention? Is that where you were grabbing them?
Some of them were shot at the convention. Mark Patton. This is actually a really funny story. Neil is kind of Neil because he runs Without Your Head. He's friendly with a lot of these people, so he's been kind of setting up more of it. And we actually were going to have a whole bunch more done, but because of pandemic, whatever.
Right.
But he shot some at a convention in Worcester, Massachusetts last year. And then Mark Patton lives in Mexico, actually.
Yep. Yeah.
And
in the documentary, that's pretty, his documentary.
Yeah, he's Mark Patton is awesome. But anyway, great. So he was coming to LA. I don't know if I saw it or he was talking about it. And I was like, Neil, I saw Mark Patton is coming to LA. Can you ask him? I know he's probably going to be busy because he was doing his screening. We were going to go to see his screening and everything. I was like, can you ask him if he would consider, doing this bit for our movie? And Neil's like, I'll reach out to him, whatever. And Mark was basically like, hey, if you pick me up at the airport, I'll totally do it for you. Like, we basically did him a favor.
Right.
And I was like, listen, like, I know that's a favor for you, but like for me to get to just like hang out with you, because like I was saying, Aaron, the first horror movie he saw was Nightmare 4. Nightmare 2, actually the first R-rated movie that I saw. I saw Nightmare it like at a party with friends. Nightmare 2. So I've like had a love of Nightmare 2 for my whole life. It's been a really important thing.
Dude, I would be speechless if I got to hang out with him. I would be so honored.
Yeah. And I was like, we will pick you up at the airport. So we picked him up at the airport. And we kind of hung out with him. And I think maybe he was like, I'll talk to them about doing it if they pick me up. And I'm like, it's good enough. If we don't get him, I won't be mad if he says no, but we just get to like hang out with him for an hour while we drive somewhere. That's already cool for me. So we drove him, and he is super nice, super cool. And he was like, how about we shoot tomorrow? And, we can, he's like, I'm not doing anything tomorrow actually before. And my friend who I'm staying with is busy. So, if you want to like, we can hang out and do whatever. And I'm like, oh, totally. We'll like buy you lunch and go do whatever you want to do. And so, we picked him up in the morning and like shot with him, and then bought him lunch and just hung out with him for a while that day, and then went to the screening like later that night. Yeah. And he's so awesome. He's so nice, and so
cool.
It was a great experience. Even movie aside, it was just a great experience to like hang out with him and talk with him. And he has an interesting life, and I just really admire everything about him. And if you haven't
plug that documentary, because it was so good.
I was about to say, if you haven't seen Scream Queen, if you haven't seen his doc Scream Queen, it's incredible. Such a good doc. And it really tells you his story from his he was involved in making it, from his perspective. And it's just really beautiful. He's just I think he's just a great person.
I don't know him at all, but I friended him on Facebook. He's responded to some of my Facebook posts, and I'm like, the guy from Nightmare 2 is responding. So even on that small level, I was like, oh, ooh, that's the fact that you got to actually hang with him and shoot him is amazing, man.
Yeah. So even, awesome. even everything about the movie, just getting to meet some of these people and hang out with them and talk with them has been just really beautiful.
Also, that's going to make the movie pretty popular in those circles.
I think it's meant for that kind of convention crowd, and so having a lot of those people will be cool for sure.
I mean, who knows, man?
And we want to
maybe Shudder or something like.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see where it goes. Yeah, I think it's coming out. I mean, we have a rough cut with missing half the movie still because we haven't shot half the movie. But yeah, it stars Michael St. Michael's from The Greasy Strangler.
Hell yeah.
And Bill Whedon, who is most famous from Sergeant Kabuki Man, NYPD, if you're a Trauma fan.
Right.
And they're both really, I mean, we've become good friends with both of them over time. I had shot a movie with Bill in Boston years ago, and I just stayed in touch with him and talked with him. And he had reached out to me to help him to try to, help him with a project, which never actually got made. But we basically have been friends for quite a few years, ever since I worked with him on this, a movie called Ungovernable Force in Boston that we shot.
It's an action movie. It sounds like an action
What is that?
movie.
It's very much inspired by like the Warriors and like weird kind of so it's the premise is basically that there's a corrupt like Nazi sheriff in town, and the bums kind of team up with the punks. It's like the punks and the bums kind of band together to fight this like Nazi sheriff, and like so they're the ungovernable force. Cool. It's a goofy fun movie. This group of people, they made their name Ungovernable Films after that movie, but they'd done a movie called Honky Holocaust as well that I'd worked on, and they'd done a movie called Gay Jesus that I worked on. So I worked on a bunch of their films, and they're a great bunch of guys. Like honestly, I learned so much about like DIY stuff just shooting on their films and dealing with because they shot crazy content. Like I shot stuff that I was like, I would never be expect that I'd be filming like people doing these kinds of things in this. Right. And then since then I felt more like in our films, I'm like, I've already, experienced these things.
I've seen you shoot some pretty wild stuff.
Yeah, we've done some stuff, but it definitely was inspired, not inspired by them necessarily to put that in, but like I felt comfortable doing it because of my experiences on those sets.
Right.
So anyway, Once in Future Smash. Yeah, it when I talked to Neil about it, the first two people that came to mind, we were like, what about, it would be really funny to get Michael St. Michael's and Bill Whedon to do it. Like they'd be perfect together.
Right. And
so we reached out to both of them, and both immediately said yes. And we're like, we have to make this movie now. I basically said to Neil, I'm like, the convention said yes to us shooting there, and these two guys who were like our dream cast both said yes. I'm like, we just have to, we didn't have money to do it, but I'm like, I will just like credit card the money to make this. I mean, it's not a lot of money anyway, but it's like,
I was going to say, if it's mockumentary, it's got to be like,
it's not that expensive.
It's not that expensive, right? Yeah.
Yeah. But we had to fly everybody out, and we paid them, and we paid for a couple of crew members.
I can't remember if you told me, but you're making, is all of End Zone 2 or some of End Zone 2?
End Zone 2 is a movie that exists.
So it already exists. All right.
Yeah, it already exists, and we've gotten the rights to do a restoration on it. So it's been out of print for a long time, and so it was made in 1970, a regional horror film.
Right.
And we've worked hard to get get access to the some prints of it, and some other things, and spent original negative, and spent some time painstakingly restoring it. So we have a full restoration of End Zone 2. We might be missing the last reel. We're not sure yet, if we're going to be able to get that, but. But yeah, so we're going to have the movie, the Once and Future Smash will be presented ideally with End Zone 2, with the accompanying film that the guys had started, as a double feature. So
that's so awesome.
That's the goal. We'll see it. We'll see how that happens. You know what
how do
goes on.
How do you like release that? I guess you don't have that answer yet, but like you know what I mean. Like in the end, like festivals and stuff. How do you actually go with that?
You mean at the fest?
Well, like how do you
or the how do we submit it? We're submitting both. We got to reach out. I think we have to actually reach out to fest directors and be like, look, this is the situation with this movie. We want to present. It only makes sense to present it as a pair, really. Yeah. You know, you can't really. I mean, I guess you could present the mockumentary without the other.
I mean,
movie,
if anyone can do it, it's you. You understand festival culture better than most people I know, or if maybe anyone that I know. Besides,
maybe.
Steven, you and Steven. I mean, you guys are tuned into this stuff. I'm like not in tune with. I'm the YouTube guy, right? But as our movie makes fun of me for. But yes, like
people don't know this secret, but cold submitting the fest isn't really necessarily the right thing for every movie. Like if you have a short film,
short
cold
film,
submit it. But for something like this, we're gonna have to reach out and say like, this is what we've got. Like this is what we're thinking about for how it's going to be presented. Like, is this something that you would consider? Like, would you be interested in this? And we'll pay. You know, like we would say at that point, like we're glad to pay the submission fee for both films. We just want to like give you the context and make sure it's something that you would
both or nothing. You're like,
I think that probably we'll do it that way. Yeah, I think. I mean, I don't know. Look, it's nothing has happened yet, so it's hard to say. But I think the goal is to put it as a package, and then to get a distribution and a physical release, ideally as a package. Right. So to put both films together, you know, like do a Blu-ray box set of Once and Future Smash and End Zone 2.
Quick question. So, who directed End Zone 2?
The name of the director of End Zone 2.
You have to look it up.
Remember, I got to look it up. I should know it offhand. Yeah, it's directed by August Kane.
Okay.
And it was written by Warren Harold. So we talk a bit about the history of End Zone 2 in the movie. We actually got to talk to some of the people who were actors in it. We couldn't track down everybody. I mean, this is like a weird, this is like a lost movie, very much a regional film. And we have a film historian in the mockumentary kind of explaining the history of End Zone 2 as well.
That's amazing.
But we were able to interview a couple of the people involved and some of the actors who were actually in the movie. We had some archive footage shot in 8mm from the set of End Zone 2, where they interviewed some of the actors. We got some on-set interviews even that was in a cache of stuff related to the movie that we found. And then we were able to interview some of the actors like more recently, as they're older, we were able to track down a couple of them.
So
in addition to the all two that, Smash Mouth guys.
So as the pandemic ends, you're finishing up one movie. You've already shot a short, and you've shot like 3 other things you've talked about. I can't even keep track anymore. But you're also doing Fat Fleshy Fingers and another anthology.
Are we doing another anthology?
Yeah, you are. You've been talking about it with other people.
Oh, yeah, that's just the script.
Okay.
Yes. Okay. Good. Yes. Yeah. Sorry.
I'm trying to keep track of everything you got launched over. You and Sophia are involved.
We're it's not officially announced yet, but we're part of a collective of filmmakers. This is actually maybe it's interesting to talk about. I don't want to reveal too much because we'll have a press release with it, but we've had the luck. I mean, much like working with you over the pandemic, like we did the transformations of the Dr.
What
Jenkins.
What a nightmare to say.
I love it. I love everything about it.
Yeah.
We had the opportunity to work with a group of other filmmakers and get together and have like weekly Zoom meetings and try to put together a film collective of like-minded filmmakers who want to. It was specifically in response to some of the Dallas Sonnier and the at that time Fangoria films, not anymore because Fangoria has been reacquired by cool people, but about like some of the abuses on set and the mistreatment of some of the crew and actors and things. And we wanted to form a collective of people who would support each other in like staffing and funding and like making films where we would not tolerate any of that kind of like BS on set and make sure that cast and crew are diverse and there's opportunities for training for people who are underserved who might not have had opportunity. So we're not going to be like because a lot of times if you don't know what's going on, you're not going to be brought onto a set and given the opportunity to learn. So we want to make sure we have like all of that opportunity built into this to make sure that we're elevating people who are not often given chances. And so together, this collective of filmmakers, we've written one of our projects that we've done is written an anthology that we're now just finished with, and we're just starting to take out for pitching and try to get funding for it. Nice. And we have some good leads on it. I mean, I don't know if it'll get funded, but we have some good leads for money on that, and ideally we'll be making that, in the next.
So the collective could make more than just one thing. It's more than
the idea is this is the first project. Right. Yeah, no, right. Absolutely, yeah. It's really to support each other, and I mean maybe even make a package of feature films that we kind of try to get funded together, or come up with a system or a group of funders who will like fund projects from this collective and kind of support each other again in that. So so it's more than just this film, but this is like the first project that we've kind of collaborated on as that group. Right. So that'll be cool. We shot Aaron's movie.
I don't know how you keep track of all this stuff, man. Like I'm writing maybe 2 shorts right now, and that's exhausting to me. I'm not shooting anything. And then whenever you talk about what you're doing, I'm always like, Jesus fuck, what the hell are you guys doing over there?
Some
you're
of it we get
in
hired
California too, so maybe that's it.
Right. Yeah. Some of it's just work. I mean, Sophia really like her job is doing cinematography. And so some of it's like we get hired, but like Aaron Brocus, we worked on Halfcock with him before. Mm-hmm. That's a movie that played Fest and it should come out soon. So we did Sitting Duck a couple of weeks ago. That was postponed. We're supposed to shoot that in March 2020. And then we postponed it this whole time and finally shot it. We're about to shoot a movie for a fellow named Travis Hierman, who maybe you met at Genre Blast or other places. But it's a movie called Demon for Hire. Yeah. So that we're going to Colorado to shoot that with him in a month or so. We're shooting a movie. We're directing a movie that's produced by a guy named Brian Asman, who he's a graphic novel writer. And he wanted to make some of the segments in his graphic novels. And so he kind of hired us to direct it and help produce it. So we're working on that. That's going to be soon. Yeah, that'll be fun. It's a cool little story, pretty simple, kind of weirdo horror, kind of Walt Disney guy story. So that'll be a fun one to do. And then otherwise,
I'm overestimating. It is work. So there's some of it's work. Yeah.
Some of it's work. Yeah. I mean, it's not our,
work. I mean, it's creative work, but
it's our work, but it's also not like, it's not initiated by us necessarily, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think I was confusing the two, maybe. I was like, initiated versus work. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So we're hired to do these things. So but I mean, but it's still, it's still work. It's still busy. And then, that might be it with everything going on. We've got, we've got a documentary that we're hopefully going to finish soon related to the Women of Rock Oral History Project, which is a project that we are, we're not the heads of it, but especially Sophia, I tag along pretty much, but Sophia's kind of like the head. I guess she's like the head cinematographer for it. So we go and film interviews with women who are less represented or less have been interviewed less often many times in kind of rock history, but made important contributions in rock history. Yeah. And we do long form interviews with them, like an hour to 4 hours long, where they tell us about their life story. Like they just tell us everything they want to share. And it goes into an oral history archive just to be available, like to make sure there's documentation about these people's lives. And we're making a documentary film, like a feature.
Right? So
right. Exactly. Yeah. We're trying to fill a gap. I mean, it's really trying to fill a gap in history. And we have some, we do interview some of the more famous people who've been represented more because that helps get attention to the project. So like we've shot with Shirley Manson from Garbage and Terry Nunn from Berlin, or maybe two of the kind of bigger ones. Cindy Wilson from B-52s.
Nice.
So those are maybe some of the bigger names, and those help. They're awesome, and we get longer form interviews than they've ever had. But those help bring attention to some of the people who are often overlooked or not as represented. And some of the stuff we've done are people who've passed away. We have a few, unfortunately, we have a few people who have since we've interviewed them have passed away, and we're really the only documentation of their story. And I think I'm really glad, I'm really grateful that we got to shoot with them and tell their story a little bit, because some of them are really interesting. Like we interview this woman, Viola Smith, who is, I guess, considered the oldest, rock. She died last year at age 107. Jesus. And she was she was a drummer in like the 20s. Like, I mean, it was like, or the 30s. It was very early. She was a drummer.
Holy crap.
And she just like had really interesting story about like why she was in big band stuff, and she invented like styles of drumming, and she was very famous and kind of disappeared, and she continued to drum into her hundreds. She was like playing drums as a 100-year-old, and she's just a really interesting story. And that wouldn't have been recorded. There's articles about her and things, and there's short form interviews.
Yeah, but nothing.
But we have
right. Like
we have the longest form interview. Yeah, there's maybe some short ones, but we have the longest form interview of that. We have. I think the movie is gonna. I'm sorry, I'm just trying to look something up really fast, so I get names and things.
Well,
correct, but
I'm surprised you don't have to look everything up. It's so much stuff.
Yeah, but we shot an interview. I think the name of the documentary is going to be called "I Got My Equalizer," which is a song by a band called Legal Weapon, and the singer of that band is a woman named Kat Arthur. Yeah, it is a good name. This woman, Kat Arthur, was the singer of that, and she passed away a couple of years ago. And she had a beautiful interview. She became friends with kind of all of us, and I really, really, again, same thing. Her story was not told very well. We got some live footage of her last show.
Yeah. And
so we're probably going to use some of that in the documentary, including her singing the song that's probably going to be the name of it. Mm-hmm. So again, it's to me, it's like it's work that I really value. Again, I'm a small part of this, just so I don't oversell my importance to this. I just
you framed it right. You framed it right.
Okay, I hit record on the audio. I set up mics and hit record, and then sometimes I edit and do stuff.
You're a best boy on this.
I'm a best boy. Yeah, they call me the intern. It's sort of a joke, but I'm basically like the intern. They always joke that I'm the intern.
Yeah.
So, but I feel really proud to be able to be part of telling these stories and representing these stories. And I think once we make the feature documentary, that'll bring some additional attention to the project and allow us to, we would be doing more interviews, but COVID kind of shut that down for a bit of time as well. So we'll get back into that soon. There's 50 or so interviews, I think, on the website already. They're all publicly available
in full, like the full interviews
in full form. Yeah, the artists are allowed to. They get final say on what goes in it. They approve it. So if they said anything they want excised, that's fine.
Yeah.
They're also allowed to have the interview held until they die, or for 20 years or whatever. They let's say they want to say stuff, but they don't want it public right now.
Right.
They're allowed to stipulate that. But most of them just say, yeah, just make it public, let everybody see it.
Right.
So
and when we're talking about you keep saying I want to make clear it's Launch Over Productions, right?
Yeah, I mean, this is a project with my partner Sophia Cassiola, but the Women of Rock Oral History project is kind of headed up by our friend Tanya Pearson. She's she's like the historian, kind of she does all the hard work for putting the things together and everything, and we do the tech work. We're kind of like the heads of the tech part of it. So that is his own. The Women Rock Oral History Project is actually like a 501c3 charity that you can donate to, and that's a project. And so Launch Over is kind of like a part of the, we're like the production team for that, I guess. Yeah.
God, man.
And I think
such a list.
Yeah, I think we really like this oral history thing, and I don't want to spoil it, but I think we might be doing a project similar to that with our friend Neil, who we've been working on with Once in Future Smash. We might start doing something like that for film people as well in the coming months.
You mean like
we're talking about that now?
Like horror people?
Like interviews. Yeah. I don't want to spoil it, but I think we're looking.
Would it be a film, or would it be like an archival website or something like that?
Well, I mean, I that's a great question. Okay. I don't know the answer to it yet. I think we think of it like a series, So this goes back to the very beginning of our conversation. What is a TV show? What is a YouTube video? What is it? So I think it's somewhere in the realm of I think somewhere in the realm of documentary. Really, I would call them documentaries because they're going to be produced, and they're not just going to be like a podcast discussion like we're having. It's going to be more structured.
Yeah.
and produced and edited and putting in probably in some B-roll and things like that. But it's not that far removed from something like this,
Right. Well, let me ask you this. Outside of all this stuff that you said, what is the dream project you haven't made yet? I want to know. You specifically, not Launch Over, Michael J. Epstein, him.
I think my dream project, maybe I shouldn't say this because someone else is going to steal it, but that's okay. I've been kind of working on it.
You don't have to say it if you
no.
to, but...
It's fine. No, I'll say it. I don't care. Nobody's going to steal it. If they do, I'll be happy that somebody did it.
I don't have enough listeners for somebody to steal it.
My dream project is to get the rights to make a sequel to Neon Maniacs, to the 80s movie Neon Maniacs.
Okay.
Because the reason for this is people make like remakes or sequels to movies that are like beloved and like that are great. And, I love Hellraiser. We should, but Neon Maniacs to me is the movie that has the most unfulfilled potential of any movie I've ever seen. I love it. Don't get me wrong. I love the movie, but it like doesn't really work. And the production was a disaster and everything like that. And I feel like there's something really beautiful in it that if you could take it, I'd probably want to make like a sequel, like a sequel reboot kind of thing, whatever
like
you call that.
Evil Dead 2 of Neon. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Right. Yeah. Exactly.
Have you actually worked on getting those rights?
I have worked on it, and it's very. The guy who probably has all the rights is no longer in the movie business. We've called an office number for him a bunch of times and haven't been able to get through to him. I think I know where he lives, but we haven't really like gone to his house or anything quite that far. I did write a letter. I did write a letter to the guy who wrote the movie has passed away. I wrote a letter to his wife about it because the rights probably, this is complicated because there's actually a lot of complicated questions about who actually owns rights to things.
Right.
Because nobody even knows. And I think no one's sure.
Yeah.
And because there's this, but this is actually the big thing with I don't know if you follow the Friday the 13th stuff, but like there's a reversion now after 34 years of rights to like creators from producers
for the Friday the 13th franchise.
For anything, there's just a change in copyright law.
Okay.
So Friday the 13th, Victor Miller got some of the rights back, and there's a battle about like whether Sean Cunningham or Victor Miller own the rights, and that's why they haven't made a Friday the 13th movie in forever.
Since the remake.
So since the remake, yeah. So Nightmare on Elm Street, Neon Maniacs, Nightmare on Elm Street had happened with as well. So Wes Craven like kind of owns Nightmare on Elm, and anyway, but Neon Maniacs, I think the writer's family probably could own some of the reversion rights. So I wrote to his wife and asked about it. She was very nice and wrote me an email back and was like, I'm touched that you are asking about this. And it's really, I wrote like a letter about how I really appreciated the movie and I thought it was, a special movie and whatever. But so I think I have a kind of she was kind of like, sounds great. I think you need to talk to this guy, which is the guy we knew we needed to talk to. And we haven't been able to get in touch with him yet. A friend of ours, his father was a producer also on Neon Maniacs. And I've talked to him some about like having his father try to get in. First of all, let me put it this way. Everybody involved with the movie hates it, wants nothing to do with it. And it's like mad. And it's like mad when you even bring it up because it was such a bad experience for them all.
Right.
So it's a touchy subject in that sense.
What I love, okay, this news, I didn't know about the Neon Maniacs thing. This news, one of the things I love about you is your absolute fascination and a kind of respect for sequels. Which, anyone that's Facebook friends with you knows that you have the whole joke with these Howling sequels aren't going to watch themselves.
Sequels aren't going to watch themselves.
They're not going to watch themselves. That whole joke. But I think that I love sequels too. And it's a rare thing. It's also not a popular thing to say that you love sequels. Most of my favorite movies are sequels to things.
Yeah.
I don't know if I've ever really expressed it, why that is, why sequels speak to me a lot. But I wanted to ask you, like, why? Why do you think they do? What is it about sequels that is so compelling to you? Because it's not compelling to a lot of people.
Yeah. Well, in particular, like the Howling and the Scanners and the other stuff that I'm saying, like these sequels aren't going to watch themselves. The thing that's fascinating to me is usually the people making the sequels aren't the creative people behind the original.
Right.
It's just somebody trying to like cash in.
Yeah, yeah.
And so they're kind of like misguided to start with.
Yeah.
Because it's usually like somebody like, yeah, it's broken. And I think it's like really fascinating to see what those people try to do to stay true to the thing. They usually have less money, but they're like, well, we know we can cash in on this. We don't have as much money as we had for the first one, but maybe we can keep these elements and ignore these other ones. And maybe there are no actors that are involved in the first one, you know? So it's to me, it's like it's kind of like what you talked about before, where you're watching an indie film and you're like, I can enjoy all the things they overcame to make this.
Right.
I feel like watching sequels, it's a lot like that, where you're like, what are all the complications that they overcame to like piece together something that makes any sense in the context of the original?
And what were they allowed to retain? What storylines did they even bother to care about? What characters did they bring back? You know, and usually that's like going to be an actor that was just paid without. There's no passion behind it. They're just there because they happen to be in the first one. Right. I mean, for me, it's that. I'd say I appreciate all that. I love that, to be honest with you. Like, when you get up into 5s, 6, and 7s and stuff like that, the fact that to think that there's any thread of continuity between any of them, it always surprises me. Like for example, this is a newer franchise, but Saw. I don't even like the Saw movies. But have you ever watched all the Saw movies? The fact that they cared to make them all try to make sense, absolutely hilarious to me. You know, like they literally do. It's like all these callbacks, like treating it like it's a Star Trek series or something. Like people are remembering this stuff going on. But at the same time, like the inverse of what you said, I also love sequels because it's usually the point in which the original premise and the original idea was taken to the extreme. It's when it was. It's when they don't have to bother with, you know, how did the leprechaun get here? It's just, okay, now it's the leprechaun in Las Vegas. You know what I mean? Like, it doesn't matter. We don't, you've shucked away that, and then you've amped up the idea to the point where it's ridiculous. And that tends to lean towards my taste more, you know, personal taste more, I guess.
Well, we've talked a lot about Gremlins too, but Gremlins 2 is one of my favorite movies.
Have we not mentioned Joe Dante on this podcast yet?
I don't know, I
don't know how we haven't. It's like I think that's the thing we like agree on the most, isn't it?
Yeah. No, we definitely love Joe Dante.
Yeah,
and
Joe Dante, man.
Gremlins 2 is like, you know, I mean, I guess they call it the blank check sequel, right? Where it's like the movie's a surprise hit.
Right.
And they're like, well, we don't know why this movie was a huge hit, but we'll just let you kind of do what you want and make something that, you know, is a follow-up to it. And Gremlins 2 feels like it's like Joe Dante, do whatever you want. Mm-hmm. And us as fans of Joe Dante, we get to see like what could do whatever was in his mind with that movie, and it's beautiful. It's beautiful,
but it's beautiful. I think it took like 30 years for people to even realize, right? The 90s, right? 25. I can't remember how many years it's been. But,
I mean, I've been a huge fan of it since it came out, but yeah, I know a lot of people didn't like it at the time or were confused by it at the time.
I had friends who explicitly hated it. But I was like, what made me love Joe Dante, outside of the fact that I love all of his movies, is Gremlins 2. Because the day that I realized that the man had a blank check, and the one thing he wanted to do more than anything was make fun of his movie. He made fun of himself, his own movie, the studio, and sequels all at the same time. I was like, I think that I had this unappreciated fuck you in front of my face for so many years. And as a kid, I just loved it because it's honestly like a beautifully made, incredibly zany movie. But when I realized it was a man saying fuck you in the funniest way possible is when I fell
bananas,
in love with it.
Yeah,
like there's never really been another Gremlins 2. There's been attempts maybe, but there's never been a situation like that, has there? I can't even think of one.
I can't think of any
where the
any
filmmaker
movie like Gremlins 2,
where the filmmaker literally just folded back and he made fun of everything that he did in the first movie, even so far as to get a critic who hated the movie to begin with and killed by the actual monsters from the first movie. Like has anything ever remotely happened like that? Even the film breaking? No.
Yeah, I don't think so. It's a very uniquely voiced film. So
right.
I mean, there are movies where the second one is more of a satire. I mean, Texas Chainsaw 2 maybe is the closest.
Yeah, Texas Chainsaw.
If I had to go,
it's my favorite Texas Chainsaw movie.
Yeah, that's maybe the closest to Gremlins 2 in the sense that it's like it's an over the top. I think Tobe Hooper has talked about that a bit, where he's like, people didn't get that Texas Chainsaw is supposed to be zany and like kind of outrageous. They viewed it as like very serious, and he's like, I wanted to make sure that when I followed it up, that I'm like, this has jokes in it, like it's humorous.
But it's coming from a place that the normal person I think can't go.
Right.
Right. Like the second one gives you a little bit more permission to laugh.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. I mean, it's more clear like what the hell they're doing with it. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. It's so
yeah.
There's parts of it they're just so, like the opening chase scene. Or is that a chase scene? I don't even know if you call it that, but
yeah, I know.
It's
I know
so ridiculous. You can't not laugh, Whereas the first movie, it is kind of a snuff film. It feels like a snuff film.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, that kind of says more about him than I think his intentions. That he thought that was that was going to be received.
Like funny, that was a cute.
He thought that was going to be funny, man. Yeah, not that I don't think there's parts of it that are funny. I think the family dinner scene to me is funny.
Oh yeah.
But I don't know about.
Well, it's a satire.
It's a satire.
It's a
right.
I mean, it's a clear, like, it's not necessarily like joke, laugh, funny, but clearly, I mean, like, Leatherface wearing the dress and everything. It's like clearly a satire of like what, because the movie is about the all-American family, right? I mean, it's kind of like what happens when you take away the livelihood of the all-American family.
Yeah.
What do they become? Like what monsters do they become, and whose fault is that? I mean, I know this is like putting a lot of deep meaning in Texas Chainsaw, but it's like they're fired. Yeah, I mean, they lose their jobs at the plant, and then they become like this thing where they have to.
Didn't like, he say that? Didn't?
Yeah. No, he did. He did.
It was about like the industrialized complex failing the average person.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
it's about them reverting to like primitivism from like when industry has disappeared, right? So they have to take what they see as the perfect like all-American, it's a Texas all-American perfect family in their nice little home, and it's like the corruption of that by the failure of the system, the economic system, to be able to provide a sustainable life for them, and that's what we see.
Also, like I rewatched all the Texas Chainsaw Massacre during the pandemic, and the one thing I kind of got from it, especially from 2, I think, is that their characters are kind of like they're kind of like the expression of true ego, in that they're these backwoods, swamp people that no one literally knows what's going on at this house. But there's this air about all of them where they act like they're movie stars. Right. They act like the things they are doing, they have these delusions of grandeur about the things they're doing are important, and they have their own traditions, and they act like they're being watched by something. And that, you know what I mean? Right. I can't explain it, but they were, it's like the lie that they were told that they were important has corrupted them even further, like the American dream and all that, and they're just like, but they're living in a complete vacuum in a barn somewhere, torturing people that no one has any knowledge of, but they act like it's we are creating a new world among us, they have this,
and that's why 1 and 2 are special. I think that's why Texas 1 and 2 are special movies, and then 3, it's just kind of like, oh, it's a slasher movie or something.
3 is a weird beast.
I'm not. I get why people like it, but it's all the wrong. It's all the things that I don't care about in Texas Chainsaw movies. It's like it's like the elements that are in it are the elements that don't appeal to me. And then 4,
3 is not.
Oh yeah, go ahead.
I was gonna say 3. It's missing the insanity.
Yeah,
there's nothing like what's actually scary about Texas Chainsaw is, like I said, how they view it. And 3 is very nonchalant death. It's just like, oh, they're meat, let's just eat them. It doesn't feel like they think it's something bigger,
Right. It's not. Yeah, you're not getting the perspective that you can almost. Look, I don't.
It's got a badass chainsaw in it. I'll say that.
It does. Yeah.
yeah.
it's not like I empathize with the family.
Let's make that
in either
very
movies,
clear right now.
But like I get how in the first two movies you can like see their twisted perspective.
Right. Yes, their perspective.
In 3,
that's it.
In 3, it's just killers. Like that's the thing. It's just like Leatherface's Michael Myers or something. It's like a faceless killer. He just kills people.
I think that's where weirdly the remake succeeded over 3. Is the I don't know. You've never seen have you seen the remake?
I've never seen the remakes. No, I've never seen any of them.
The remakes kind of replaced those delusions of grandeur with delusions of importance and pride. Personal pride, like everything wrong with today's America. I think that the remake does a good job, at least, of exploiting that. Like, they act like they have the authority, and this is their land, this is their country. They can do what they want with these people, and they have the right to it. And it and they also have the added aspect of like R. Lee Ermey being the police chief and everything. And,
right.
Like it's really they at least carried it over. I'm not saying it's a great movie. But I'm saying that it does have more value to me than 3 does.
That makes sense because I think I like I said, I think they missed the point in 3.
Yeah,
and then 4 feels like
the next generation. We're talking about, right?
Yeah, the next generation. They just took they were like, well, what if we made 1 again, but we made it like 2, and they like didn't understand. Like I haven't seen the movie since the 90s, so my understanding maybe, but. It's like a movie that doesn't really have any idea what it's trying to do.
It doesn't.
It feels like,
but it's kind of like aesthetically cool in some ways.
It's fun. I mean, I enjoy it kind of, but you're just like, what is this movie? Like what? And then the ending is you're just like, okay, they clearly have no idea what this movie is. Like,
yeah, but it also has 2 famous people in it, so
it does.
It does. It's 2 famous people. Yeah, they kind of lost the plot. I'm not I don't know if I'm recommending it to you, but I'm saying they kind of refound it with the remake, oddly enough. I plan to watch
them all.
the other stuff, the other remake franchise, but just the first remake, the Michael Bay produced one.
Is that Is it Texas Chainsaw 3D?
No,
is that the same?
No,
that's a different one.
3D,
I get confused with
3D is the retcon sequel that takes place right after the first movie, dismissing everything else. And then
which they're making again, and then they're making another one of those. But
and then there was Leatherface, which was the prequel to the original movie that is supposed to be in line with 3D. So they made a trilogy by sandwiching 2 new movies on both sides of the original movie. It's like unfucking believable as far as like comprehension purposes. But this is a good thing too, because like whenever they talk about making a Gremlins 3, it's like it's not going to work because you can't make Gremlins 3. And whenever they talk about it, they never talk about Joe Dante being involved because he's pretty much either retired or no one wants to give him any money anymore.
Right,
as evidenced by some of his later projects.
I've seen him talk a whole bunch at things, and I think it's more that nobody wants to give him any money anymore.
Yeah, and also, I mean, Chris Columbus does not like Gremlins 2. He outright, I think he outright hates it because it is making fun of him. Or you know what I mean? Like it is saying kind of fuck you to what you did. But he's apparently written Gremlins 3, and they're going to make it without Joe Dante, and I'm like, you can't do that.
I thought there was like a TV series.
There is. There's a listening to his podcast. I know this from Dante's podcast. There's the Origins of the Mogwai or something. It's an animated prequel series. Which once again, I'm like, it seems to me like that's not getting the point of Gremlins at all.
Yeah,
I don't want to know how Mogwais where they came from.
No.
I don't. But
more just ruins it.
But more importantly, I don't want to see. Chris Columbus has talked about his script to Gremlins 3, and he says it's extremely dark, and it takes it back to what the original movie was. And I'm like, no, you can't do that now. It's like Joe Dante, he made it so you could never make Gremlins 3 properly. But I'm sure they're gonna do it. That's gonna eventually happen. No matter how.
I hope Daniel Clamp is back. I think Daniel Clamp has a lot of new material to work with.
He is yes, there's the Trump aspect to it, but he is like a good person comparatively. So
it is actually funny in the movie. I always thought that like Gremlins 2 is a fascinating movie because there is no villain.
Yes, it's just the existence of the Gremlins as a plot point. It's not.
Yeah, it's like they're not even really villainous. They are. I mean, they are, but like they're not. Like Stripe is the villain in the first one. You know, like there's a clear like. In the second one, it's just chaotic. It's like it's there's not like a leader.
It's weird that Clamp isn't the villain. It's weird that it has sympathy for him. I think that's also due to John Glover, his actual performance. Yeah. Like you can't hate John Glover just because he's magnificent.
He's on Murder, She Wrote a bunch. He shows up on Murder, She Wrote all the time. Yeah.
He's local to here. He went to Baltimore. Yeah. He went to Towson University, I think, here. But yeah, like he's like a sympathetic Trump. And the movie's odd in the fact that they establish that he loves like colorizing movies. And he's like, the movie establishes that he's part of a problem that obviously Joe Dante sees.
Yeah.
But the escape of the Gremlins isn't his fault, nor his order or anything. It's weird like that. Like he's not responsible. He's only the one that says it at the end. Like, let's put him, every house in America can have one of these things, Yeah. But he's not, you're right. He's not a villain. I never thought about that.
It's a weird movie. It's weird in every way, but we don't have to go on a further Gremlins 2 rant. I think everybody should just watch Gremlins 2 and enjoy it. And I should watch it again because I haven't seen it in a year or two. So I'm ready to return.
I just assume you're always watching Gremlins 2.
No, not always. Not enough. I think Sophia she's a fan of it, but not as much of a fan. In Dante in general, she's a fan of Dante, right. But it's hard to be as much of a fan of Dante as either one of us. You're probably more than I am, but I am a big fan of him.
He's my favorite director. I mean, I've said that for years.
I like him a lot. I mean,
because to me, I'm also a big Spielberg fan, and I know that's probably something we aren't copacetic on. But
that's fine. Not a huge fan.
Yeah, that's fine. But I think the difference is, like, to me, they're yin and yang kind of in their way that they both worship Americana. Spielberg, his movies, like, look at E.T. His movie is about something coming into the American dream and then making it fantastical. Whereas I feel like Dante is actually commenting on it and fucking it up.
Right.
And Dante definitely that part of it speaks to me way more. All of his
for
movies.
Me too. Yeah.
Yeah. Like that definitely speaks. I get why the other one is more popular easily, that's going to speak to more people, but Dante, he always has that kind of satirical edge that no one I don't know if there's any modern filmmakers I would give that to. Maybe, I don't know, Edgar Wright a little bit. I don't know. I don't know who I would actually give that crown to now, but
he has a very unique voice, and I think it comes from loving cartoons in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
Like, it comes from being interested in certain kinds of things and being a fan of like different, I don't know. There's something about that. Like I also am like, I love that marriage of horror and cartoon aesthetic and like just weird kind of, early sci-fi aesthetic and all those things. I love all those things together. So all of his work,
50 sci-fi,
yeah,
Chuck
definitely
Jones.
Is.
Like I usually when people ask me to list like my favorite filmmakers, my inspiration, I always say Chuck Jones. Like literally, I do, just because. I mean, it's never talked about, but when I was a kid, Dante's segment in Twilight Zone was my favorite thing ever. Like,
right.
I hate that it's involved in that movie because nothing can escape that movie's cloud. Understandably so, but that's such good work. It's just like that segment is like a masterpiece, and I just wish it could be yanked out of there,
extracted from.
Yeah. I mean, I actually like the Twilight Zone movie, but.
Yeah, the whole movie's good, but you're right. It is hard to.
Landis's segment is the worst segment, honestly.
Yeah,
I actually like Spielberg's segment. I'm one of those people.
Yeah,
but,
I like all of it.
Yeah, but you can't, like, no one's ever going to touch it again. No one's going to talk about it. No one's going to do anything again. But yeah, Dante's segment to me is like the best, and people don't ever want to like, I don't think it's on Blu-ray, but I don't think it's ever going to get any type of treatment beyond that. Like that's as much as we can hope for.
Yeah.
Can there be?
I think just because the brand is popular. There could be, I'm sure, but I haven't seen it. I would have probably gone if there were a screening of it, but there hasn't been here at least.
Oh man, but then you're gonna have to listen to Landis talk about it.
Did I ever tell you my Landis stories? I mean,
you've mentioned
very brief.
You've mentioned it because he's been at the Dante screenings, right?
Like I've seen him a few times at things, but my favorite thing that I ever saw him at was a screening of The Hole, 3D presentation of The Hole, which I guess is, from what Dante said, it was like the third time it had ever been presented in 3D on a big screen.
Right.
So I was excited to go. And it was, so it was a presentation of the movie. And then it was kind of like a Landis doing an interview with Joe Dante, like doing I don't know, it's supposed to be like a long form interview. It was for some kind of, it was for a launch of a company that was releasing comic books or doing short films of like scripts that were never actually made, like sequels to movies that never got made. So it's trying to like revive interest in like properties that were developed but never, like, so it'd be like Alien 5, you know, it'd be like, let's make a comic book of Alien 5, stuff like that. But anyway, for some reason they decided to screen The Hole, I think because The Hole had never really been screened properly. It never got a proper.
Here it was just Blu-ray. It was only released on.
It never got a 3D release because of something else that was out at the time. I think Clash of the Titans or something. But anyway, whatever the point is, it's supposed to be a long form interview with Dante done by Landis. And Landis proceeded for like an hour and a half to just talk about himself. It was classic. It was like exactly everything that you would expect John Landis to do.
Did Dante look okay with what was happening?
I think he was. I think he's probably a little annoyed, but you know they know each other, and he's just like, "This is what I expect from him." You know, it's kind of like
they gotta be close. So
yeah, I think they're friends. It's this is par for the course. It just made me laugh so hard because I'm like, this is just everything I expect from John Landis. And I peed next to him in the urinal next to him. I was like, I'm peeing next to John Landis.
That's
I don't know why that's an exciting story, but I just thought it was funny.
You didn't say anything, did you?
No.
Oh, okay.
Well, I wasn't like, hey, John Landis, I'm peeing next to you. But for whatever reason, I guess
up his own like movies. Is that what you're saying? Was it just, or is it?
If he just found ways to like talk about himself, people would ask a question to Joe Dante, and John Landis would be like, "Well, when I was working on, American Werewolf, I did this thing," and like, he just found ways to make it all about him.
That's really great.
It was really funny. It made me laugh a lot, but no, Dante's great. I love seeing him. I've seen him
outside of Gremlins 2. What are your other favorites?
It's like
I don't know if Gremlins 2 is even your favorite.
Gremlins 2 is probably my favorite. Yeah. I love The Burbs so much. I'm never gonna not love The Burbs as like maybe second. And I think the thing about The Burbs is it's another one where you're kind of like, how did this movie get the money that it got and the cast that it got? It feels like a movie that should never have been made.
It's got a huge
so funny.
It's got a huge cult following these days, which is amazing. It's
so funny and so strange and so like I don't. Do you find it to be a movie that you can't really explain? I don't know, like something about it, because when people are like, oh, if I say I love The Burbs, I'm like, it's funny, but that's not really like what is special about it. It's just so weird.
I say this with complete and utter seriousness. There are a few movies in my life where you could probably earmark like 15 years of it where I was just obsessed. And it's like one of the things that I watched constantly. And The Burbs is one of those movies. Like I think another one might have been Big Lebowski. Yes, before the fests. Okay. before Big Lebowski became that. But The Burbs for me was a huge. I mean, it's probably my number 2 as well.
Yeah.
And to this day, I find that when you mention it, people love it. But then again, I don't know, like what you're saying. I don't know why precisely.
Yeah,
it's so incredible. Like I kind of want. That's the one thing I've always wanted is Dante to talk about it more. I want Tom Hanks to comment on it.
Yeah, that would be amazing.
He's never said a damn thing about it, and I can't remember. There's a reason for it because he's like not. He's been trying to move away from his comedy years for a very long time, But I would love to hear his take on it now when it's kind of like this cult beloved classic, you know? I was hoping when Rick DeCumming died, there might have been something that, you know, was said about it, but no, nothing. Why do I love it so much? I think it's because I grew up in a cul-de-sac. And to this day, my mom still lives there, and I don't know my neighbors.
Yeah.
It was real. Like, the only person I knew was there was a girl I used to play with. We used to play Ninja Turtles and Ghostbusters in the court, you know, on weekends and stuff. And in the end, I mean, the Burbs it's about my dad and about me. And I don't know those people. And it's true. It's the truth is that the claustrophobia of the cul-de-sac and the fact that we are so separated as to not know that what's going on in our neighbor's house. It's true. It speaks to me. And the movie's just immaculately made and one of the best scores ever, and it's funny, and you know,
it is,
all that stuff too.
I think Joe Dante, you know what I'll say? I think a lot of his movies, this is going to sound like a dig, but it's not. A lot of times it feels like the characters aren't all in the same movie always.
Mm-hmm. No, I agree.
But in a way that really works for me. Mm-hmm. Like, it feels intentional. And in The Burbs is like a perfect example where that family really feels like they're in their own movie. And that's what makes it unsettling and like weird, and why his experience with them is so, because you can relate to like him being like, something is off about this. Like, I don't know, you know, because you're like, yeah, they don't belong here. Like, they don't belong in this movie.
Yeah.
And they I don't know.
Tom Hanks doesn't seem happy in any form in that movie. Like,
right.
even if everything was going ideally, he seems like an unhappy person. And you're like he should leave this life the whole time you're watching that movie. But then it forces him to be proud of it, which I think I've always found. My favorite part in the movie is when he said, "Nobody kills an old man in my town and gets away with it," or my neighborhood and gets away with it. Like, that for me is the best part of the movie, because it's the moment where he just accepts that he is finally who he is. is one of these guys who mows his lawn for 1,000,000 times and snaps. You know, like he accepts it. But yeah, there's nothing comfortable about it. It's all awkward, you know. Like,
it is.
Like even down to the incredibly overt awkward parts, like the pretzel and the fish pretzel. it's like genius awkward comedy in a lot of it.
It's an amazing movie.
And caricatures.
I probably should say goodbye with the Burbs, and say hello to Blanche the dog. I think she's.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry, I kept you
ready
too
for
long.
me to take her out. You didn't keep me too long.
Okay,
you kept me the exact. You kept me the exact right amount of time.
Yeah.
And that's what you shouldn't be sorry, because now I'm saying this is the time when I should.
No, I appreciate it.
I've enjoyed this conversation.
We don't get to talk enough.
I would talk about every Joe Dante movie with you.
Yeah.
From, you know, I don't know what his first one was.
It's Piranha 2.
Did he do?
No, Piranha. It's Piranha.
Piranha, yeah, he directed. Yeah, because Cameron did Piranha 2.
Cameron did Piranha 2. Yeah.
He did. Did he do Hollywood Boulevard before that? Anyway, doesn't matter. Joe Dante.
It doesn't matter. We could talk about it for hours.
Awesome filmmaker.
We won't. I actually
thank you.
This made me want to watch Joe Dante movies now. So yeah, man, thanks for doing it.
Thank you for having me on. Yeah.
We used to do trivia. I miss that because I used to just get to talk to you and Sophia. Like, I feel like we've been friends, but a begrudging reality of such. Like, we talk all day, but we can't actually talk, which, you know, it's frustrating to some degree. And you're literally 3,000 miles away from me. So right. Yeah. So thanks for.
Well, I'm glad we can talk.
Yeah.
Thank you for bringing me on Shrimp Night.
Yeah, yeah, dude. And I'll put links to Tribades, Fat Fleshy Fingers, and the Launch Over YouTube channel, or the Launch Over.
That's good. Yeah,
like that.
That's good.
Yeah, I don't know if you had anything else you want to direct people to.
No, I think we've talked about it all. We've done it all. I appreciate the opportunity to chat about things. I love longer form chatting, so I love getting to do this for a few hours rather than like 10 minutes of like, here's my movie.
Right. Instead of the stream that we met on, right. It was like so fast and everything. Well, I don't want Blanche to be Bay.
Yeah, I'm just worried about her. I'm just keeping an eye on her on the video, and I think she might have to pee, so I better take her out.
This is the only time I have like tried to keep focus, because when you brought Blanche into the thing, I was like, oh, but I don't want to. I'm trying to keep on topic here.
It's all good. But thanks again, and we'll talk soon.
Yeah, man.
Yeah.
You just made it to the end of Shrimp Night, a casual chat show available only on the Thunder Grunt Podcast.